Paul Murphy says, have you tried turning
I'm
it off?
live!
I was just saying, Paul Murphy says, have you tried turning it off and on again?
I have tried kicking it. Well, never mind where I've tried kicking it. Honestly. How dare it? It gets more convoluted every week. I log into Chrome, make sure it's a Google Chrome because Google own YouTube, and I'm logged in and everything, and without fail, the second I try and go live, you're not logged in. Oh, I am. Anyway, I'm here now, finally. Right, hello, Jonathan. Jonathan was first. First in, does that mean first out, Jonathan? Just asking. Hello, Kim. I think he will have had coffee, just saying. Hoping to make it 4-3. We'll see how that goes, Jonathan.
These Aussies are making me hungry.
Are they?
Yes, they're having breakfast, yes.
Hello, Peter. All the way from Perth. The dog ate Perth, didn't he?
Not that Perth.
Not that Perth, no. We had an A to Z, no, not an A to Z, a big map of the UK, and the dog was quiet one day. Yeah. We turned round and he'd eaten Perth and half of Scotland with it. Right, catching up. CQ, Deb, CQ. I'm always having technical trouble. It just doesn't like me. Oh, Winnie the Pooh, too peoply. It's been far too peoply out there this week, I can assure you. Hello, Paul, and another Paul. We've got a full quota of Pauls, I do believe. I think we have all the Pauls in from everywhere. Excellent. I'm getting Krispy Kreme donuts.
Who's
Luckily,
having Krispy Kreme donuts?
Paul Conaway. He's saying to Peter, Krispy Kreme donuts, warm.
I missed that bit.
Now
I want something to eat.
Oh, go and get something to eat if you want something to eat.
I'll get something later.
Right, I'm live. Excellent. Good. Okay. Yes. Excellent. I'm all up to date. Everything's good. Everything is good. I've even remembered to press record. So can we have a round of applause for that one?
Yay.
I am not having any luck whatsoever sharing my iPad. It does not want to know. It knows it's there, but it's not playing ball. So that could upset one demo. But you know what? We're just going to battle ahead with it. We're just going to battle ahead with it and not worry about it. And it'll be all fine. I just drag one thing into one place and I'm done. I do think I am done. Let me have a look. I'm done. Awesome. Oh, isn't it nice when something works? And if only the yeah, that's sort of right. The running order is a little bit on the
Well done,
light
Marcus.
side.
A round of applause for Marcus.
Hey, why? What's Marcus
Today,
saying?
his first YouTube video has been published.
Oh, brilliant, Marcus. Put the link in. Put the
I was
link
going
in.
to say, link.
Get the link. Get the link in there. And we shall all have a look at it. My running order's off, Mike. I'm missing something, but I can't remember what. You've got your access forms and reports. So that's okay there, but you don't spell reports like that. And I had something before and after that one, and I'm not at all sure what. So we'll go with Notion and... Oh, I can't remember. Come on.
It's all very last minute here.
Signatures, that's what it was. No, everything was fine, and then it all wasn't fine.
It broke.
It got all upset. So I'm now good to go. Excellent. But we've all had a rare old chat, so it's not bad, is it? Right, you need to see my desktop. That's not my desktop. Okay, that is my desktop. Excellent. And then I need to do that, and then we are good to go. Excellent. See? It's all fine. I don't see the bad link. Hello and welcome, everybody. What have we got tonight? We got loads tonight. We may have more than that. Depends what mood the kitty's in. At the moment, the kitty's fine. The computer's fine. They're just not fine together. So we'll see how that pans out. But we do definitely have Notion. Brand new update to Notion. No... Before you get excited, it's still not the timeline update, but it's quite nice. So we'll have a swift look at that. Then we've got signatures in Gmail, all change. We've got Jonathan's challenge, which was picture-in-picture presentations on a budget. That nearly caused a domestic, didn't it? Mike volunteered. He stepped up to the plate for me, didn't you?
Didn't cause a domestic.
Very nearly caused a domestic.
Did it?
Then we've got some freebies, and then it's Mike's extravaganza on access forms and reports, and sprinkled liberally with SharePoint.
Have we got an unboxing?
Well, not on there, no. Oh, is it on there again?
Yes,
It's
and
appeared again.
Jonathan seems to think.
I'll unbox Mike. It'll be fine. Remind me, Mike. I haven't got a slide that says unboxing, but it is on there. Right, YouTube's still not telling us whether we're in HD or not, but obviously make sure that you are.
We could unbox the toys that came this afternoon, but they're being de-COVIDed.
Well, they said 72 hours, so that's a good 3 days, isn't it? So I couldn't really open one of those. You never know, I might find something. If you're still awake, Jonathan, there you go. Can't say fairer than that.
I could unbox the cake.
You could?
Yeah.
You've got a cake to unbox. Oh, you do?
Yeah, the dime bar cake.
Oh, there you go. We could this all presupposes that the camera wants to focus on anything, because he'd been in a bit of a mood today. Now, while we're all talking and chatting and thinking about it, thank you very much. Jonathan's trying to drum up trade for the likes, which does make a huge difference on YouTube. I was actually saying to Mike that I'd spotted a video I was quite interested in watching, and it's not actually happening till Sunday. And there was a few likes on it, and I thought, that's nice. And then I looked at the dislikes, and there were 2 dislikes. Really? It's not started yet. People are strange. But if you're feeling generous, that would be excellent. Right, the week at MacBites headquarters. Oh, what a week. What can I say? What a week. Starts on Saturday with a picky that I found that was put in our local group. And last week we talked about the superheroes. This is the sale superheroes. They are just average folk who like to jog. And they all started doing it in various superhero costumes. And they're now in demand to go round to people's birthday parties and stuff. There was a lady I know who was arranging with them to go round and see a lady who it was her 90th birthday. They're amazing. Anyway, this photo, you can tell it's all mean and moody in the background in front of our town hall. They were out for a photo shoot to promote a charity run that they're undertaking. And that's the same town hall that Mike laid the wreath in last November. So that's our town hall. So they were out and about getting their photographs done. Then on Sunday, ahead of Boris's little chat, this was Jonathan's park when he was in Leeds, isn't it, Jonathan? This is Roundhay Park, which is Jonathan's hometown. And not much social distancing there. Luckily, Jonathan's now in the warm and safe cocoon of our hometown, where we have far more sense. But it wasn't good out there. This was before the lockdown was changed in the slightest. This is relevant because today, so about 5 days on, this would be right, guess what? The R rate's gone up again. So we're heading for the second wave. So I just thought I'd let you know why we're heading for the second wave. But on Monday, that was a momentous day for me. I hadn't placed an order for about 10 days. So it comes to placing an order. And I said to Mike, I'm going to put this order in. It's got water on it and stuff. And I'll just put an extra few pieces in and we might get it by tomorrow. We got same day delivery. We are definitely staying with Morrison's after this, but I wanted to share it with you because the guy who delivered it, that's from my camera that I have up there, hence it being a little bit on the less than spectacular quality size. But if you see that, I wanted to let Kim know that not all our deliveries arrive in a huge refrigerated lorry. And also, he's wearing more PPE than my dentist did on the last dental appointment. Seriously, he's got full scrubs on, he's got a face mask on, and he's got gloves on. And there he was, dragging it all up the path. Bless him. But he did get it here, and that delivery took all of about 5 hours to arrive. So we were quite happy with that. We headed into Tuesday. Tuesday could have gone better, couldn't it, Mike? He's forgotten the pain of it. Let me remind you. Black Bin Gate. Now, you are all very well aware now that our bins, you need a PhD to understand when they're going to be collected. We discussed it on MacBites 117 in Bravo Sierra and the science of said bin collection. Well, what happened this day was it went out, black bin went out. That is recyclables, tins, plastics and bottles. It was overflowing. And they forgot to take it. Lola, not happy. Not happy at all with them. That gap between the blue bin and the green bin behind her tail. That's where the black bin should have been. She was not happy. Barking at the bin men, one of the highlights of her week. Daddy got on the phone, didn't you? And explained that Lola couldn't be deprived the chance to bark at the bin men this week. So on Wednesday, crack of dawn, they emptied it. And Lola, much happy. Much, much happier than when... she also realigned their expectations, hence the bin being emptied by 9 o'clock. Bless her. Did you pay extra for the private car delivery? No, you don't pay delivery with Morrison's at all. Not if you order via Prime Now. So no, I never pay delivery. When Mike gets an order, it's usually between about £4.50 and £6, depending on the time. But no, I don't pay delivery. So go with Morrison's rule. I also found this picture, which is local. Mike will be really interested in this one, because that would be the way you go to work if you went on the motorway. Because as you can see there, there's a junction and it's Hale, Wilmslow and Macclesfield. So I'm reckoning that's the M56, Mike.
Yeah. Yeah.
About time they dealt with the central reservation, cleaned it a bit, but never mind. But it gives you an idea just how much more traffic is out on the road. Luckily, it's not us. And Chicken's at her feet. Chicken was at her feet. She was squeaking that. Make sure you empty that bin. Squeak, squeak. She loves Chicken. So that's my hometown coming out of lockdown. But this, I reckon, is far nearer you, Jonathan. Because those buildings look very riverside-ish. That is one of the karate experts, I believe, who was in training for the... was it the Olympics this year? It was full Olympics, wasn't it? So he's out and about and he's now doing it outside his flat. In other news on that day, this is another one of my cameras and I am spying. Need to do the weeding as well, Mike. Neil knows that junction. Excellent. I'm going to get this video going. So that is a video. It's actually running now. You can see the countdown at the top. And we do the deliveries. Oh, look, delivery. But this time, I thought I've got to share this. I've mastered winding the thing back and getting videos and stuff. Then I'm there. There she is. This was the highlight of Lola's week. Absolutely the highlight of Lola's week. Even better than barking at the bin men. This is Nina, the ninja shopper. And she has arrived with supplies for Lola. So she's going in the boot and she's getting it out now. I think that they look at how heavy that is. Poor Nina. But just watch what she does. Mike will have missed this. She spots my camera and she waves to my camera, even though she knows I'm upstairs in the office. So that is Ninja Nina delivering said dog food. Look at it, poor woman. She's going to have muscles where she shouldn't have muscles after this. She's wearing my favourite jeans as well. I do like those jeans with all the embroidery on. So there was the highlight of Lola's week. And there she is chatting to Mike. I think she then went back and got some more. And then she turns around, she's chatting to you again and waving to you. Excellent. So then it was Thursday. What could possibly go wrong here? We redeclared Thursday Milk Crate Gate. That's a good one, that. Milk Crate Gate. Yeah. This one was actually one of Mike's, but he's given me the picture to share. So, you were going out. Was this on the way out?
It was on the way out at 7 o'clock on Thursday morning.
Must be understood, we do not have milk delivered to the house. And even if we did, I don't think we'd need that many. But I'm presuming milk bottles in my day used to get collected. And I'm assuming they do now.
I guess so.
But again, you need to understand this. We didn't order any milk, nor did we have any empties to send back. When Lola found 4 cratefuls of empties right outside her gate. She wasn't happy, was she?
No.
So tell them where they are now, Mike.
They are in our front garden.
You're wondering why we dragged them in, aren't you? Well, they are actually strewn right across the pavement. If you had a child in a buggy or a wheelchair, you would not get past.
Person.
Well, no, I'm just saying you wouldn't get past.
Oh, yeah.
There is nowhere that you'd have to bump yourself off the pavement, wouldn't you? There's no low bit to get round it. You just could not get past. If you were blind and you didn't have a dog, you'd probably be straight into them. The dog even would probably stop and think, what exactly is going on? 4 crates of empty milk bottles. But you did try, didn't you? You rang the dairy.
I rang the dairy, and the dairy said,
Not our bottles.
Yeah, well, yeah, the dairy's phone number is on that crate. You can see it. So I rang the dairy.
There's their number.
And she asked me for where we lived, and I told her, and she said, "Oh, that's the Modern Milkman."
The Modern Milkman.
And I'm thinking, what's the Modern Milkman?
Never thought of delivering, just saying.
So I asked her what the Modern Milkman was. She said, "Oh, it's a company. They do things the modern way, apparently."
Oh, so the modern way is just dump that outside somebody's gate and you're good to go. Well, we decided at the end of the day. Oh, no, because then she gave you another number and you rang them.
I did.
The Modern Milkman.
I rang the Modern Milkman yesterday half a dozen times and I got no reply. And obviously they are on a reduced staff because of COVID.
So he was going to talk to his boss, wasn't he, the last you heard?
So we decided that we would move them off the pavement and into our front garden so they're out of the way.
Well, we had two options. We could have moved them up to our garden wall, which would have given people time to get past, room to get past. But given what's been happening locally, it would only take some idiot walking past to pick up a bottle and start throwing it. So we've taken it into our front garden. Now, Neil says you need to get out and mow that lawn, apparently, Mike.
I know, Neil, I know.
Not when it's hot. We don't do it when it's hot. We don't do it when it's raining, which pretty much means we don't do it. We're rewilding. It's a thing, apparently. You can get books on it. Hey, Mike, it's a good excuse. Go with it. Go with it, babe. So I said to Mike, let's drag it in and hide them behind the hedge until we can find someone who'll take them off our hands.
The fly-tipping dairy, says Neil.
You're not kidding. The next thing will be publicly shaming them, I'm telling you. But if Mike hadn't have been annoying the council, telling them that the bin hadn't been emptied and it was upsetting the dog, then we could possibly have rung the council. So that one may run and run. We've got no idea where they came from. But that took us on to today, and Mike was out enjoying the view, weren't you? A view none of us have seen in years. 99.9 pence for a litre of petrol. For the Americans, how many litres is in a gallon?
Is it 4.5?
In which case that would be about $4.20 a gallon. Yeah, criminal. We used to buy it by the gallon as well.
Maybe the milkman lost his bottle.
Yeah, maybe he did. He has now. We've taken custody of them. So Mike was quite excited over the price of petrol, but we decided it wasn't worth going out and getting any, didn't we?
No.
No, we're not going out doing that. It's too peoply. So let's get on with the Notion update. Actually, there was quite a lot in the Notion update, just not what I was waiting for. But you've got whatever, you've got to take it. The Notion update was, first of all, they've got 20 jobs. I thought, well, that's great. Could you possibly fill them and get on with it? But the biggest thing that they've been working on is the startup time for the mobile app. As I'm sure many of you are aware, the mobile app, not exactly the fastest thing on the planet. If I'm accessing information, then I'm not too bad. But if I have to work with it, it's just annoying. Because it is very different. It's all in one column and all the rest of it, and I do just find it incredibly difficult to use. But the changes that they've made this time and last time, because there was another update about 5 weeks ago, and that was the start of the big updates for mobile. And they've carried that through this time. I would say mine's starting in about 1.5 seconds, like it says there, 1.5 seconds. Good morning, Deborah. I'm going to Ohio to get petrol. It's only $1.89. Most of that is tax, Paul. What we pay here, there is a huge tax on it. Yes, and most of it's tax, which we'll see what they're doing with that, won't we? So they've concentrated on the mobile startup time, basically, and it's much improved. So they're monitoring, and there are very few pages that are now taking over 6 seconds. However, Android could be better. So we'll see how that goes. They've also made, what they've said here is, this is like a before and an after. Before you'd be waiting for Notion to start, whereas now you've got your note added in the same time, as long as your note says hello world, I believe. They've also added a whole new section to it. They're including this in release notes from now on. Which is a new section to give you tips and tricks that you may not be aware of. So the first one was that Command Option and T on a Mac and Control Alt and T on Windows close up all of the disclosure triangles. So it's basically, they've added a tips section to the release notes. They've also completely simplified the interface on mobile, as you can see there. So now you've got the choose a template before you get going, rather than having that actually in the note. It's now part of the toolbar across the top of the keyboard underneath. Right, what else did they do? They last update supported multiple columns on tablet devices. But now they've added support for full width pages too. I would say on a 12.9 inch, it is making a huge difference. But I'm finding it might actually, if you are going to use this a lot on mobile, it could impact the way you design. I tend to design with 4 columns, and it's a little bit too much. So if it were 3 columns, it would probably work better on mobile. So just something to think about when you're actually designing it. Now, this piece of their update, quite strange that it was there, because this is self-referential filters in database templates. Before you panic, it's what we looked at last week. We demonstrated it in After Hours 75. So basically, when you have a template, has anybody done their homework? Let me know in the chat. Have you done your homework? And had a go at this. But you basically have a master table and a child table. And when you create your template, you pre-filter it for the name of the master table. And then the children come in automatically. And I showed you a demonstration, and I showed it you with MacBites. So they've actually mentioned that this time, but that was already there, but it wasn't there last time. So I don't know why that came out like halfway. But that's huge, apparently. The other thing they're doing is, if you go to the release notes, which you can find from within Notion, they're now giving you behind the scenes sneak peeks at how they are using Notion at Notion HQ. So it's very meta, but useful. And the first thing they've done is a video of how they built their team wiki. And there's also a long blog post as well. So that's the Notion update. Let me know what you think of that. Is that good, bad, indifferent? 50 pence a litre in Sydney. I could also move to Sydney, couldn't I? Quite fancy that. The big news from Sydney today, in fact the whole of Australia was, on the UK news, the pubs have reopened. So there are men now crying here. I would say crying into their beer, but they're not, because they've got no beer. So let's have a look at multiple signatures in Gmail. Who's spotted these already? They were promised for April and they missed the date, probably COVID related. But for many, many years, you've had the ability within Gmail to have a signature. Now, the signature was in addition to your out of office message, but you could only have one signature. So your option was to have one signature or not use the signatures. That was it. The update gives you multiple signatures. So let's have a look where you go and how you configure that. So let's go in there. In that mood, are we? I will do the Firefox thing. And we'll bring Firefox on full screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into a MacBites UK container. This is just a thing that Firefox does. I'm logged into my Gmail account. But in the MacBites container, I am logged into the MacBites Gmail account. There we go. And it's telling me that Google Meet is now available in Gmail, which is fabulous. That was working wonderfully for us until it broke. But there you go. Right, so you are in here. At the moment, they're limiting people in the pubs. This is not good. Are they making any money if there's only 10 patrons in? Or do they sit outside? Need to know these things. Right, with your Gmail account, everything is virtually in the settings. So the first place to go and have a look is in the settings. You will find the signatures down the bottom here. So previously this was just one signature, but now of course you have this create new and you can create multiple ones. I deleted this one, so I have no idea why it keeps coming back. I don't know the answer to that, so we'll leave it be. So I'll just create a new one. So let's say this one is... now, because Mike and I both use this, it would make sense if I had a signature and Mike had a signature. So I could go in here and I could put my signature. So, host and producer MacBites. And then I could put the MacBites URL underneath that. Excellent. And I could even put our email address, which is macbitesuk@gmail.com. Excellent. So that part of the signature would probably be exactly the same as Mike's. So I will create another one and we'll call that one Mike and create. And we'll put in there Mike Thomas and put that in. Although Mike doesn't produce. No. There we go. So easy way to create signatures. Now that's okay for creating them. You can in here, so let's say you want that URL to be bold, you can do that. Probably makes sense there, where you can have that larger and you could have that bold. So you can format these signatures. So let's go in there. We'll make that one bigger. Make sure it's selected first, make it large. And that one there. No, I didn't want the background. No, oh, text. Pay attention, woman. Pay attention. Right, let's have the background, that colour, and let's have it MacBites orange. And bold. There we are. And we'll make that bold as well. So, there are your formatting options. They exist in the cloud, so it doesn't really matter which client you use for these. Can you put HTML signatures in it? I have not tried that. What did you want to put in there, Jonathan? Graphics and stuff? Should be able to, because that one, where it says large preference placeholder, blah, 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 has probably come from an app. So, there's my signatures. Now, before you go anywhere else and start trying to use them, it may well be a good idea to think, what do you want for new emails? So down at the bottom here, you've got your defaults. You can, for your new emails, have no signature, or you can choose one of the signatures. And you have exactly the same option here on the reply and forward. Now, we haven't really got a generic one, but if we added one, which was the MacBites crew, so we'd use this where it didn't matter who replied to it, then we can put the crew at MacBites, and then we can put the rest of it underneath. And again, we can make that large and orange and bold. I think it was the other orange. I think it was that one. All right. In which case, it would make sense to have that one as the default. So in there, we'll choose the MacBites crew. Now, then you get the option to insert before the quoted text in replies. I'm going to leave that alone, but if you need it. So, Jonathan designed a signature in HTML a while back, mini icons and links in columns. Try it. Try it, Jonathan. It may well work. Let's have a look. Does it tell you? It might. I've done rich text ones and then pasted them in and it's been okay. So I think best advice, try it. Now, once you've done this in here, make sure you scroll down to the bottom and save it. So hit the save button. That then takes you back to your inbox. At which point, I'm going to create a mail. So C creates a mail. And you can now schedule when you want to send it. They can be sent at a certain time, which is in there. But you'll see the signature comes in. And we have the ... to indicate that that's the signature. At which point, I could send myself a mail. There we go. Just from MacBites. In the middle of MacBites. After hours 76. There we go. And off it toddles. Now, if I were to wanted to send one to a reply, that one shouldn't come in. So what I mean by that is the signature. Let me see. How am I going to do that? I'm going to take this off here. That's what I'm going to do. We go into my mail over here, which is probably full of all kinds of rubbish. And I'll send one to MacBites. If you want to send one to MacBites, feel free. MacBitesUK@gmail.com. So I'm trying to get in there. My test has come in. There's my test. So we'll bring that on. There's my test. I'll send one from in here. Why are you not doing that? Excellent. Right. And we'll send that to MacBitesUK@gmail.com. Right. Once I've got that one through, that's not going to have any signatures. That should just come straight through to here. I'm going to show you what happens when you hit on reply. So let's refresh it. Come on, Gmail to Gmail should be there. Just saying. Probably gone in the spam, hasn't it? Sending myself spam. No, it's not coming in. Why isn't it coming in? Oh, come along. Well, I was literally just going to show you what happened when you hit reply on a mail. And basically, because I didn't set anything up in here, in my settings, it shouldn't have a signature on a reply because I said no signature. So really, I was going to show you a negative, but seeing as though it's not bothering to come in, fair enough. Right, there is another way to do that, which is if you go to C, so I'm pressing C for compose, which is giving me this, or just compose up here. You also have this insert signature because we've said that as a default, we want the Chrome at MacBites. But what if I want to use mine? Or what if Mike wants to use his? Then you don't want the default, and you can just change them with this pen at the bottom. You can also from there manage the signatures. And that actually takes you into exactly where you've been, but it scrolls you down so you know where everything is and you can create or edit another one in there. The mail you're editing carries on being open for you. So if I send that back as me and test2, send that again to me and test message, then it's got my signature on it, which is before it had the generic signature. And you can have as many of those as you like. That is actually a bit of a game changer if you access your mail via a web browser, which Mike did first here. And I remember saying to him, how could you possibly manage your mail in a browser?
That sounds very snobby.
I know. I thought I needed all these fancy mail. Do you know what? Mike was right. Right, I've said that now.
Oh, she doesn't say that often.
No, I don't. So you might want to make a note of the date. No, Mike was totally right. You can do it in a browser. But it obviously makes the job far easier because for years you've had clients that could do that, mail clients, but not actually inherently within Gmail. What I used to do to work around that, you should all be shouting out at me what I used to do, because it's what I always do. I had a dirty hack I had to work around, and it was basically to use my text expander, and it would put in any signature that I wanted. So I would have it set to no signatures, and then just type in SIG, and then whichever I wanted. So SIG MacBites, SIG Elaine, SIG whatever, and it would come up. I might still do that because it's easier and it's universal. It doesn't matter which mail client I'm in, I could still do that. But it's nice that they've added it natively. It's a good idea that they've added it natively. The other day on Marooned, I'm going to take a 2-minute aside here, Mike. I think it was last night on Marooned, we were talking about snotograms. We call the show snotograms. It's either last night or the night before. People that subscribe to your mail and then say things. And I've just had one. And you guys said I should share them with you in a sarcastic tone. So are you ready? It is from somebody who was unsubscribed from a mail and says, "Why did I receive this mail?" After they had to double opt in. So there you go. You like the text expander idea. It worked really well. And with it all starting with SIG, am I going to show you the hack? I can do. Let me think. That's the easiest way to do it. I don't use text expander. I use Typinator. So the hack that I had, if I go and do a new mail, and I get rid of the signature that's there because I don't actually want it, and I put SIG MacBites. I think it was SIG MacBites. It clearly wasn't SIG MacBites. Was it that? There we go. And it actually fills the whole thing in. So it's just a keyword, SIG MB in my case for MacBites. That's coming from my text expander. So my text expander is Typinator. Here's all of my stuff. And I think do I have signatures separate? These are all the groups on the left-hand side. Doesn't look like I do. So let's add a group. There you go. New abbreviation set. And let's say I want to call that signatures. Then over on this side, you then create the actual shortcut. In this case, it says abbreviation. So I would want SIG, and you can see disabled by SIG MacBites at the moment, yes. But let's say I wanted this to be, let's say marooned. Right, SIG marooned. So when I type that, SIG marooned, it's going to put in whatever I put in down here. So I'd put in probably Elaine, and I'd then put in probably my full name. I'd probably actually put Elaine at MacBites because we just sorted that out. I might put in what I'm doing, etc. But I'd certainly put in, that's not going to work, is it? MacBites.co.uk for the site and anything else that I wanted. Yeah, what I'll probably do there is put there, currently marooned at MacBites headquarters, which indeed I am. So there's my marooned signature. So I would close that and go back into here, lose that, and then put in SIG marooned. And it would automatically correct it, if you're with me. It's just a short way of doing it. And it can, we go back into Typinator. In here, you can, at the moment, that is, are we a text one? You can have formatted text, you can have a photo, and you can have HTML. So at the moment, it's just plain text, but I could actually choose to format that. So I could make that bigger, etc. So show the fonts. Let's not have that Helvetica. Let's have that Avenir. Make that much bigger. Yeah, we could even go to that size. Change the font on the rest of it. So basically, any formatting that you could have in Word, you could have in your signature. So you are literally just setting it up in there. And if I wanted that bit to be yellow, orange rather, can I get my orange in here? Where's my pencils? There we go. There is a formatted one. And again, I might want that down there to be bold, which is one of these things in here, I think. Or can we do bold? Oh, it's in here. There we go. Black. We don't have the word bold. We have black. And now it's formatted. So if I go back into here, obviously the application you do it into would need to support formatting, which clearly that one does not at the moment. How bizarre.
Johnny, I'm having a bite of Toblerone.
Oh, I can hear the rustle of Toblerone. I'll work out why that's not working, but yes, that's how I do it. So I choose Typinator. A lot of people choose other ones.
There's a discussion in the chat.
I'm just looking at that, so let's have a look. I'm having trouble with Text Expander. It blocks too much software. No idea why I've been thinking of looking at Typinator. The only downside of Typinator is it's licensed per machine, but it's not that expensive that needs to be prohibitive. Trust me, I wouldn't be with it if it did. I used to use Text Expander many years ago, and I had a problem with it. I could make it crash at will. I was trying to, it was when they brought in the synchronization via Dropbox, which obviously an amazing feature. Typinator synchronises via Dropbox. And I could make it crash soon as look at it. So I got onto support, sent all the details in, and got totally ignored. And that doesn't sit well with me. I know they've had a change of staff since, but now it's subscription anyway. The only advantage it has in that regard is it would work on Windows, but then I work on Windows so infrequently, I don't care. So I switched to Typinator and I've never looked back. The support is superlative. Once you've bought it, and you can buy it a single license, or 5 licenses or 10 licenses, they do little packs. The upgrade price is amazing because they give you an upgrade price, and then depending on how many you buy, they give you a multi-purchase discount. So traditionally I've had 10. We could probably get away with 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, we need 6. We should need 7, but one's broken. So I buy 10. But instead of the upgrade being like £5 a seat, it ends up to be about £3.60. So I don't mind paying per seat, and the support is amazing. I have said this before. I sent in a couple of requests of, why isn't this working? Why have you changed this? I preferred it the other way. And I've always had a reply within 5 minutes, not just a reply that says, yeah, I'll think about it. Actually done it. One gave me the instructions for how to use a terminal command to switch it back, and he said I will put it in the interface, but to get you up and running today, here's the terminal command. And the other one fixed the problem straight away. He released a new version and said, just try this, does it work? If it does, then I'll release it to everybody. So I love Typinator. Typinator is rock solid, absolutely rock solid. So is that enough of the hack for you, Kim? Right, so I'm trying to follow this. Is it saying it's blocking it? Jonathan's gone for his now. You can put in blocks where you don't want Typinator or Text Expander to work. It could be that. Just depends. I've just found Text Expander a little bit erratic, but I didn't have the time to spend playing around with it to try and make it work. It crashed like 20 times and I thought, I'm done. I've got more things to do than this. Right, okay, so that was multiple signatures. Right, let's get into the next bit. Now the next bit required me to be sharing my iPad. I would love to share my iPad with you. However, my iPad is plugged in. It's telling me it's working. The system can see it. Let's just make sure the system can see it by going into QuickTime.
Oh, Johnny's got a proper sized gaps between the triangles. Not like when they changed it to bite-sized gaps.
Oh, I know, that was ridiculous. It totally did away with actually using it. Right,
using what?
Using the Toblerone thing.
Oh, right.
You couldn't be doing with it.
Oh.
They're not too bad, the ones you've got. They're not like those huge gaps that Jonathan's talking about. Right, I can see my desktop. I can see my iPad. Well, it's having a think about it. So when I say see, let's just wait while it has a rare old think about it. Mike, I think I've come up with a workaround. Okay, this isn't the way I wanted to do it, but you know what? If it's prepared to do it, then let's do it. Right, this is what we're doing. So you just stay there. Don't move, iPad. Good iPad. Don't crash. Right, printing from iOS. Who enjoys printing from iOS? Because I don't. iOS is a nightmare to print from because it has very little control. What I mean by that is, that was me printing out the church newsletter today for a lady up the street who wouldn't know one end of a computer from the other. So I get the PDF and I print it out. Now, looking at that was in PDF Expert. At the top, I was able to choose the printer, and then I've got presets. Then I can determine how many copies and if I want it two-sided or not, because I've got a two-sided printer. I could choose the page range. I could choose the paper size. I could even choose the orientation of the paper. And then underneath PDF Expert, I've got a whole range of other options. And on iOS, print, don't print. That's about it. If what you want is like from Pages or something, you'll probably be okay. But the scenario I had was the lovely Nina, and obviously she just got the dog food off, so failure wasn't an option. She doesn't come round with failure. Her problem was she wanted to print something out at 7 inches by 5 inches. The printer was working, the iPad was working. She could go in and resize something in the Photos app, but every time it printed out, there's no option to tell it 7 by 5. So every time it printed out A4. You need Printopia. Well, the thing was, what I actually needed, Neil, was something that was cost effective, preferably free, but cost effective, that was simple for a muggle to use. And I found something. And, spoiler, she said, when she'd tried it, she came back, easy peasy lemon squeezy. So there you go, recommended by Nina. She was very, very pleased. The app that I found was Print to Size, which I think I'd used before. It's $1.99 from the App Store. I'm sure Mike can find the link. Naughty me.
What's it called?
Print to Size from the App Store. Now, in order for you to see this, you need to see my iPad. So here's hoping this works, preferably permanently.
There we go.
Right, if I move away, excellent. You can see it. So let's leave that alone. Using AirPrint, no problem. Do it rarely, it's always worked. I think it depends on what you're actually going to do with it. This was slightly more than that. So let me show you what this does. I have actually had in here where I open up a spreadsheet and I print it out to the biggest printer I have ever seen. It's bigger than our bathroom. And I had to hook up to it. It's an IP printer, the whole works. But I still needed, which one did I use? I think it's one down here. No, maybe it's up there. I use a different app for it entirely. It's from Riedel, Printer Pro from Riedel. But that wasn't what Nina needed. She needed complete control over how to print this thing at 7 by 5. So this is the app. The first thing you do, obviously it looks like it's sideways and I could turn it around, but then that would upset everything. So we'll leave it alone. But the first thing you do is you tap in the lower left-hand corner and you bring up the options. And in there, you choose the paper size you want. So what she wanted to do was to print it to 7 by 5. So tapping in there and have a look down here. And you do have the standard photo sizes in there as well. So for Nina, it was 7 by 5. And that was what she wanted. And it was that way round as well. The second thing you need to do is to set the orientation. So do you want it portrait, do you want it landscape, or do you just want to leave it automatic? So you can actually specify that. Then there's whether you measure it in centimetres or inches, or indeed millimetres. So I actually don't think it matters. I know it's 7 by 5, and that's all I wanted. So at that point, it's totally set up for what I want. The next step is to add some stuff in from my photos. And as luck would have it, I have some MacBites posters. Oh, which one shall we have? Which one would look good printed out? Oh, I know. How about that one, Jonathan? Naughty narcolepsy. Right, so I add that to it, and then I can scale this. Now, the beauty of this is if you have 7 by 5 and you want to print out like a collage, you can do that. You can go back into here. Oh, that was another good one, wasn't it? Oh, have we got my SpotBot? Hey, we got my SpotBot.
Really?
Yes, I always have my SpotBot handy. If you never heard that show, you need to hear it. So you can use it like a collage where you are not wasting your printer paper. And again, you can size it and scale it and play around with it and all kinds of things. Even like cropping it like that. When you use the triangles, you are cropping it. So brilliant. Loving that. Loving that. But we'll get rid of Mike's SpotBot. We don't want you to be assaulted by Mike's SpotBot.
No.
You can tap on it and you can delete, crop. You can rotate it. So if you want to use up that last little piece of paper, you can do that. And what else have we got in here? You can flip it around.
Deb's got this app.
Ooh.
And Johnny
recommended from a junk journal group.
App.
If Steve's job was still with us, it would do this by itself. That's the problem. I mean, I love the fact that I can do it with an app like that. I absolutely love it. Let's get the other one round. Come on. There we go. Nearly. Right, but I'm going to get rid of that one anyway. So I'm going to delete that one. So I'm going to work on this one. What Nina wanted was one photo, and she just wanted it 7 by 5. Now, you see you can take that outside and you get the dotted line. That is where you can actually crop the image. So I don't want any white on it. I want it like that. But as I stretch it, you can see I've got a particular problem with that. It's not going to fit on there properly. Neil's just bought it. I haven't seen the end of it yet. Right, but what I'm going to show you is, imagine this isn't a poster like that. Would look ludicrous with the text missing. You can, where I've had a problem with this was when I went into Tesco's and I wanted to print out a photo and I couldn't make it the right size. I tried all sorts and I couldn't control what was cropped off. But in here, I would get to control what was cropped off. So if I wanted the text on it and I wasn't too worried about the head over there, I can just place that in position. So I've got no white line at the top and no white line at the bottom. And I now know when I do the magic with this and send it to the print machine at Tesco, it will be 7 by 5. What I have determined is the right crop will be how it's cropped. Normally when I send it to Tesco, I get the bit in the middle and I'm like, that's not right. Right, so I've sorted it out there. The next step, if you want to undo, you have undo. Let me move my mouse. There's undo. There's redo. That's the ad I've tapped on, but this is the print bit at this end. So I'm going to tap on the print bit. And what you can do there is you can either select a compatible printer. So in my case, I've got quite a few things on there. I have our main printer, which is on Novate, which is the second one down. Obviously, Mike's got that printer on his iMac. So it's the same physical printer. It's just 2 different ways to get to it. I could send it to Angel, which is my MacBook Air 2018. I can send it to my Kindle. I can also send it to Mike, send it to Novate, or send it to Serenity. So they are just computers or devices on our network. If I wanted to print it out, then I could print it out to that network printer. But that won't actually help me get it to Tesco, will it? What I can do, as well as printing it, so I'm going to actually try and send it to the Brother printer. Now, it says mode colour photo. Well, no, because it's black and white. So let's try grayscale. And we'll print it. Mike will go and tell me. Choose a supported paper size. Oh, dear. Well, it's not really the printer for that, is it?
Your ability to stay awake's being discussed here.
My ability to stay awake?
Your ability to stay awake.
Neil thinks I'm going, Neil, no. No. Come alive at night. Don't try looking at me at 7 o'clock in the morning, no. No, I'm telling you, it's going to be 5 too. I'll just carry on all night. Right, let me go back to that printer and show you the other way of doing it, which is Nina sent it straight to the printer, put her 7 by 5 thing, everything was fine. Right, but I want to send mine to Tesco's, ergo, problem. But you can also choose to save this.
Well, they swap it for dog food.
What?
At Tesco's.
Swap what for dog food?
What you're sending them, will they send you dog food?
Probably not.
Ah.
No. So I can export it as a PDF, I can export it as a JPEG, or I can save it for later. I'm going to export as a JPEG. And I then get to see where I can send that to. And there's the lovely Nina and the lovely Rachel and you. I think they'd be really thrilled to see half a MacBites poster. But I can also airdrop it so I can actually see it. So let's do the airdrop thing. And let's airdrop it to Serenity, which is the machine that I am working on right now. Have you left Faith turned on next door, Mike?
I haven't touched Faith.
You did. You did a demo on it earlier that I'm about to show everybody. Right, there's all my images. So let's get that off there. Let's get that opened and then I can share it with you. And there it is. So let me just... Now you need to see all of that, not half of it. And it's 7 by 5. So you've actually controlled the output on that. If I now sent that to Tesco, uploaded it to their system, etc., it would be spot on the right size. And that was the bit that was missing for me from an iPad. I have Printopia, like you're saying, works great. Doesn't really allow me to do that. And I also use, and it's also fantastic, which is Printer Pro from Riedel. But again, doesn't do what that one does. AirDrop's fabulous when it works.
When it works.
Jonathan, and I must admit, a lot of the time here, it's a bit moody. I will say, though, we do have a lot of network devices, don't we? Like 9 Velops for a start.
Yeah, but I actually, if you're sending me something or I'm sending something from my phone to my Mac, I have to go into Finder and actually be in the AirDrop folder.
I do on my Mac. The iPads work far better with it, and you've just seen it work there. It remembers the machine you're on, and obviously I'm on about 5 all the time. But there you go. Neil's sending wide awake vibes. I have to do something about this. I have to intercept them. But I just think that's a really good app. And the test of it for me was, I said to Nina, how does 199 sound? And the thing was, she already had Photoshop, the mobile version. She had 2 other applications. And I said, well, do you want to print it off your iPad? She said, yeah, but I know there's no chance, so I'm trying to get my Windows machine. I said, no, let's go back to the iPad. So to me, the validation of that app was when she came back and said, easy peasy lemon squeezy. I thought, Nina's happy. So she actually managed to print the photograph that she wanted out 7x5 and then make some collages up. So she was quite happily playing all night with it. So for $1.99, I decided I wasn't going to waste time. I agree with Jonathan. It's something I think that should be in there. But until that happens, that's a great alternative. It's something I would keep on my phone for those times when I'm out and I've taken photographs on my phone that I've got with me, or my iPad maybe, and I want a copy of it. So there have been times we went to, do you remember when we used to go out? It was months ago, do you remember? Leaving the house.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of thing.
Forgotten about that.
Yeah. Or do you remember when we went to, we were somewhere in the afternoon, the Chinese, and we'd got some photos, and then we went on to a shopping centre in Salford because we were going to a do in the evening.
Oh, yeah.
And we were at Asda, and I was thinking I could print some photographs out, but I couldn't because I'd have to take them to a desktop and get them the right size. But that solves the problem.
Wasn't that where we worked upstairs? Wasn't that where we worked upstairs?
We did. We went into the cafe. They closed after about half an hour. But she said, don't worry, you can stay if you like. So we stayed there for about an hour and a half, used the facilities, got ourselves, just before she closed up, I said, well, I'll have another pot of tea then. And we stayed up there. There was just us and one lady. And it was basically because it would have taken too long to come home to go back again. We were in the centre of Manchester and we're going to Salford, which was like 5 minutes the other. So I said, well, we'll just head over there and we'll find somewhere. And we did, and it was great. But it would have come in very useful at that point because there was no way that I could do it. I'd have had to have taken the whole lot off and fiddled and everything. So I think that is highly, highly worthwhile. Highly worthwhile. So I'm going to turn that off before it gets any giddier than it already is. I shouldn't have had to have done it that way. I should have been able to do it. What's the betting now? If I click on this, it would actually pick up my iPad. What do you reckon? I reckon there's a good opportunity that it would, a good chance it would. Let's have a look. No, it's still complaining. Fair enough then. Right, we'll be coming back to the QuickTime player anyway, but I will close it as everything else will melt. Right, okay then. Oh, let's get into there. Let's lose the iPad. Find the keyboard. Get into the next one. This one could be the one that sees Jonathan asleep. But maybe not, because it's his toy. It's his toy. Right. I was challenged by the lovely Jonathan, who had a requirement to create a picture-in-picture presentation video on a budget. We'd have been all right, but for the budget thing. So just in case you don't know what picture-in-picture means, it means where you have a primary video, in this case, the blue one, and a secondary video, the gold one in this case. So for Jonathan, it was slides in the background. Now, it could be slides or it could be a screen recording of slides. And then the orange area is where you put your webcam footage. It's usually talking head. It doesn't have to be, though. If you think about the kind of videos that I do, my demonstration would be the blue bit. And sometimes I do a camera bit over the top of my iPad so you can see where my hand is, where my fingers are moving. So it doesn't actually have to be talking head. It's just 2 different videos, one behind, the other one smaller at the front. In this scenario, it was the lovely Jonathan that needed to be in the gold bit, with his slides or screen recording of his slides in the background. Right, so how do you actually do that? Well, we're looking at concepts at the moment, the principle of it. So the blue bit is the slide video in the background. Gold bit, picture in picture. Across the bottom is what your timeline would look like. The blue bit would be your screen recording, and the gold bit would be your picture in picture. And on a timeline, that is how you would organise it. So a video canvas can contain stacked content. To see the picture in picture, it needs to be higher in the stacking order than the recorded slides. So the gold bit being the PIP. Then it needs to be scaled so you can see the rest of the content. Now, this, yes, that is indeed you, Jonathan. It's really you. You made the mistake of sending it to me on Twitter once and I've got it. Couldn't resist. Now, that would be really simple. I do that all the time, day in, day out. I would use something like ScreenFlow or Camtasia. That's what those applications are made for. Now, ScreenFlow's Mac only, but Camtasia's cross-platform. But what they can do, we needed to capture three things at this point: the audio, screen, video. Now, audio is, as the name implies, the audio. The screen could be an iOS device. Your video could be a webcam, could be another camera, could be a pre-recorded piece you want to include. So in ScreenFlow, ScreenFlow itself allows you to record multiple screens in a single recording, and that includes iOS. It has a built-in audio recorder and a built-in video recorder. So obviously that would have done everything all in one go. Camtasia can let you record a single screen. So you can record your Mac or Windows or your iOS device. But for what Jonathan wanted, the built-in audio recorder, screen recorder and video recorder would have done the job. This was the problem. The price was why Jonathan was looking for an alternative approach. It's far too much, either of those, to invest for a single job. Now, you may think, well, I'll get the trial. I'm only doing a single job. But both of them have crippled the trial to such a point you wouldn't be able to get the output. So, nice idea, wouldn't work. What Jonathan could have done, but we found a workaround, but what Jonathan could have done was get the trial of either of them and create the footage and then send it to me, and then I could have sorted that out. You can, in your trial version, make as many as you want. Your problem is when you come to export it, it's got a dirty great big watermark across it. But if you were to hand your creation to somebody who had the paid for version, they've got the serial number in it, they can take the work you've done and export it for you, and there's no watermark. So that was another approach. I did think about that one, Jonathan, but I thought I need challenging here. Right, so Jonathan needed audio and he needed his screen recording for his slides. And then he needed the talking head video. But that was when I stopped and said, hang on a minute, are you sure? Because the slides can be done in one of two ways. You have two options with slides. You can make a video of the slides by using the slideshow feature and just record your screen. But the other alternative is you could export the slides as images and then assemble them on the timeline of the video. So you use your video editor in post-production to basically recreate your presentation. So these were the alternatives. Now you may be wondering how you decide when to use video and when to use images. Now there's one critical thing to think about. You are going to need video for transitions and animations. I don't use transitions or animations unless it's absolutely essential, because it gives me more flexibility in how I produce that content out to another format. So for instance, I have this thing with presentations that I may need to come back to that in 8 years. Many people don't need that, but I need that. And we've all had problems. You had problems only the other week, didn't you, with a PowerPoint file? I always assume that a newer version of the application will open the older version's files, but the older versions would not open the newer version's files. Would that it were that simple. There are PowerPoint files that will not open in newer versions of PowerPoint. There's absolutely no need, no reason for that, but it won't do it. So how, when you've made a presentation, do you make sure that you can see it in the future? And what I do, I have this thing, trademark, the presentation life cycle. And when I've finished a presentation, I export it as the highest quality graphics I can and a PDF. And obviously, my transitions and animations would be lost in that. So I only use transitions and animations when they're absolutely critical. Something like this, I would deem to be critical if I wanted to put that in a presentation. If I were to then export that as a PDF, I'd think, well, I'd have to lose that, but then maybe make a note for myself that it was the anvil transition. But back to these videos and images. Other than transitions and animations, it's pretty much personal preference. But here's some things to think about. Video needs to be recorded in real time, unless you're prepared to edit it repeatedly. So if you're stumbling over the words and you've got a slide on the screen and you want to edit out the words, you're going to have to edit out the video as well. The video has inbuilt timings which can be good or bad. So what I mean by that is slide 1 is on the screen for 5 seconds and then you start talking about slide 2 and slide 2 is on the screen. If you need to adjust that, retiming I call that, and I will retime something for a fraction of a second. But it's really noticeable if you've got a retiming requirement of 3 seconds. Then you're going to have to edit the video again as well as the audio and make sure that it all keys up properly. If it's images, it's a whole lot easier. Now the images also may be better quality than a screen recording video. That's going to depend on your recording software. So as I've said, the images make it easier to adjust your timings. With mine, when I'm doing mine, I prefer the image route, unless it's absolutely essential. But when you come to adjust your timings, it's better if the application that you're putting all of this together in has the capability to make rolling edits. Who's ever used a rolling edit? Let me know. Jonathan's saying he's only ever used Anvil and Magic Move. They're pretty much mine, and very, very infrequently. I think I've used Magic Move quite a bit to scroll up, which is probably the way you're doing it. But that would work without, I would say. And the Anvil one, I think I've used twice. One was when I hit 10,000 subscribers. I got a bit giddy and I put it in after hours, I think, but very, very, very infrequently. The other option, if you do need to use something like an animation or a transition, you could export just that bit as a video and do the rest as images. So let me know, have you done rolling edits? ScreenFlow is good with rolling edits. There are obviously other video editors. How good they are with rolling edits depends on the editor. But Camtasia has zero ability to do rolling edits. And of course, I moved to Camtasia. Now, I personally had never had the need to do a rolling edit until I'd moved to Camtasia. At which point I tried doing it and thought, just a minute, and there was no concept of it. ScreenFlow, fabulous. And I'm sat there with this need to have like 60 slides and I'm like, oh no. I've got half of this in Camtasia. Anyway, I had to do it manually. However, I have a hacky workaround. And I know you love my hacky workarounds. So I can show you what that is. Jonathan doesn't know what a rolling edit is. A rolling edit is where you have 2 pieces of footage and you want to change where one changes into the other. So if you imagine you've put your slides on your timeline and each one is 5 seconds long, but for a particular slide you're talking for 10 seconds, then you need to roll that and give yourself more space for the audio. I will put it on a post-it note for next week. Consider it done. I will show you a full rolling edit next week. Also, the last thing to think about is images make it far easier to make changes to the slides in post-production. Do you remember the Norwegian flag incident, Mike? I do.
No.
I'd done a presentation, and it was a presentation about presentations. So it was, I think it was called, do you remember? It was about 2010. Extreme Makeover. Slides, Extreme Makeover.
I do.
Yeah, which was fine. Had a Norwegian flag. It was all right. It was the right flag. Only I spelt Norway wrong. Don't ask. It's obviously at the last minute. If that's in a video, which it was, I could patch it, but you'd have to take everything that you could see, you would have to patch the whole thing. You could tell the join. You could tell the join. Trust me. Because the quality of the recording wasn't as good as the still image. So even when I've done something in a presentation, so like you're looking at now, if I was to turn this into a video for YouTube, I'd probably go over the top of the video with the still images. But that's because I don't have any transitions and animations. Okay, so that's what you need to think about. Do you need this to be video? Do you need this to be images? I will say, if it's video and you have made no mistakes, one take, Thomas, which he didn't. Not one mistake, was there? He's not saying anything.
Oh, no.
No, you're thinking about the 5 minutes before, aren't you?
Yeah.
That doesn't count. That was just your warm-up, darling.
Okay.
Once you've done that, you were one take, Thomas. It's faster to do video because you don't have to do the rolling edits. But let's have a look. So Paul's yes to rolling edits, Jonathan's yes to rolling edits, and Neil is rolling edits, jump cuts. So much energy needed. Rolling edits are easier. They're easier if you can make the software do them, and you know what they are. So we'll look at that next week. So at this stage, you need to go through a checklist to determine exactly what content you need to accommodate and how you intend to capture it. So the two methods were video on the left, where you'd need audio, animated slides, and webcam footage. And if you decide to go the images route, you'd need the audio, static image slides, and webcam footage. That's what you'd actually need. So, back to Jonathan and his constraints on this one. Right, the screen capture, if you're going to go the recording the entire presentation as a video route, this is the only way to incorporate slides with transitions and animations, so you need to record it. And the app for that is Capto. It ticked Jonathan's box because it's in setup, but it's actually incredibly cost effective to start with. It's in the App Store, the Mac App Store, but at the moment it's 40% off during lockdown. So it's £11.99. Now, you cannot get robbed for £11.99 because it's actually very capable. It's nowhere near as capable as ScreenFlow and Camtasia. On first look, you would think, oh yeah, this is great. There are certain things missing that would mean you need to go another way for other things. But for £11.99, it's always handy to have. Or you could get a setup subscription, which would float Jonathan's boat. So we would be using here Capto to capture the screen. The second thing was you would need QuickTime. Now QuickTime can record both your screen or your webcam. So you could actually use QuickTime to record the slides. The problem is, of course, it can't do both at the same time. So I had to make a choice. And I made a choice. It was probably better to have Capto recording the screen and QuickTime recording the webcam. Now, Capto will record the audio and QuickTime will record the audio. You, however, do not need 2 copies of the audio. So, what to do? Would you mute one or decide not to capture the audio on one? You may think, to the untrained eye, that looks like a good manoeuvre. Don't do that. Because if you do, keying the 2 up will be a living nightmare. So capture the audio 7 ways from Sunday. If there's a way to capture the audio, capture it. It's easier to mute it later than it is try and sync it up. Right, so that's where that's going. That's doing the webcam footage. So we have audio captured in both Capto and QuickTime. We have the screen being captured in Capto, and we have the webcam being captured in QuickTime. So technically speaking, we are good to go on that. Right, once you've got your raw content, the next thing you're going to need is some way to assemble those component parts into a video. So basically you need an editor which has track capabilities, not trying to put everything on the same track. That won't work for picture-in-picture. It's give you a reasonable video, but it will not give you picture-in-picture. And remember, it needed to be free or on setup. So I went for free. I went for iMovie. Now, I hadn't used iMovie in years. Absolutely years. But it's very capable. It actually looks like a little cut down Final Cut Pro now. So it was the one to use. If you look at the bottom of all of those things on there, including your phone and your tablet, you will see the holy grail that we need, which is multiple tracks. Now, they do work slightly different in iMovie than they do in Camtasia or ScreenFlow, but it'll do. It'll get you there. So let's do it. Right. So what I needed to do was set up QuickTime. Now, obviously, I have had to Blue Peter this one. I have had to do this before. But let's get that up and show you QuickTime. So, new movie recording. And it's having a think about it, and it's opened it up, and it's picked up my iPad at the moment, because my iPad is still turned on. But this is where I can choose what it records. So Geronimo's my iPad. I've got a Wirecast virtual camera. That could be interesting. That should show you what's on there, I think. Not at the moment. Okay. I've got my built-in camera. I've got my virtual camera. And I've got my webcam. And my webcam is there. There's my webcam. Don't know why it's so tiny. There we go. So I am here saying hello. Which one is it? It's that one. There's me. So it's just pointing down at my desk at the moment. So that would be recording the talking head. So we'll leave that there because we're heading into the red in the system CPU and then it starts spinning. So you do need that and you do need Capto. So I'm going to shut this down only because it's going to melt. Everything's going to melt if I don't do something with it. So I'm going to close that down and we'll lose that. Let's try and get the CPU down a bit and then I will show you Capto, which is the other bit. So Capto is, we did a demonstration on this. Mike will find the link. That's it. This is the organizer in Capto. It's sort of a hybrid between Camtasia or ScreenFlow and Snagit. This is the library that you're looking at now. You can take screenshots of the screen, an area, a window, a menu, or from the web. So something like the web. So capture, let's go snap from the Capto browser. If I put in my website, it will load it up. Have a think about it. There's my website. And if I then wanted to capture that, I've got the opportunity over here of snapping the page, an area on the page, the DOM elements, which sound rather dodgy, but the DOM elements mean individual chunks. So that's a graphic, that's the menu, that's the header. So it can basically take individual pieces. Or you can do the whole thing there. And if you do the whole thing, you going to do that for me? Is you having a think about it? It usually scrolls, so it will capture the whole thing. Or you can take just a bit. So let's say we want that bit there. And it gives me that window so I can draw around it and say, just capture me that. Now remember at the moment, so we'll hit snap on that and it'll put it in the library. You can also do a PDF and download the whole thing. So we'll put that on the desktop. And it's grabbed that as well. But remember at the moment, What have you sent a YouTube one for? Is that where we did Capto?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, right, so I'm going to exit that. My captures will then appear in here. So it's captured all of the individual pieces. We've got all sorts in there. There's another Capto capture. So all sorted. So these are the videos, these are the images. So it is a very capable application. Now, if you wanted to record the screen, what you would do is you would tap on record and you would tap screen. You can also see here Geronimo's listed. So Capto is also capable of capturing your iPad output. So what I would suggest if it's presentation is to capture the screen. And at that point, you get this little dialog box at the bottom here. You probably don't need the computer audio unless... Who can tell me what the unless is on that? When do you record the computer audio, Mike?
To line it up.
With what? It's the computer audio, not your microphone.
Oh, if a Catinian meeting.
Beeps and squeaks, I say. Beeps and squeaks. Any noise that your system makes, you may need to capture. So the example that I give for that, and it's a genuine one, you tell me what you may use that for. But for me, I usually do a video about how to install the latest version of macOS. And I usually demonstrate it with an application called Diskmaker. Used to be Lion Diskmaker. It's now Diskmaker. Diskmaker 10. And at the end, when it's finished strutting its stuff, and it usually takes, well, the speed depends on how fast your system is, but it can take like 45 minutes, anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes. When it's finished, it growls. And I'm not joking. It growls, literally growls. And obviously I need to capture that if I'm going to tell people when it finishes, it growls. I need them to hear it. So from that perspective, I would turn that on. The only time, no one said anything in the chat, but we're thinking of Jonathan's scenario. The only time Jonathan would need to record the audio for this particular job, the computer audio, is if there was something on his slide that made a noise. So, you know, like we've talked about transitions and animations, you know, the one that really, really annoys you, the one where the type appears like a typewriter and you can hear the typewriter, that one. If you want to capture that, you're going to have to put a tick in that top box. We've already ascertained that's not a good idea, but, you know, if you need to. Then you can record a camera. Now, you may be thinking, if you can record a camera, why can't we do this just in Capto? Yes, I thought that too. And I haired off down that path. And I did indeed get a picture-in-picture. Problem was it was burnt into the picture and I couldn't move it because Capto only has the single track. So don't do that. You're only recording the screen here. Because it's a presentation, I didn't need to show the cursor in the recording. But if you're going to use this, you know, you decide £11.99, I'll have that. And then you're going to make a video. Don't forget to show the cursor if it's a demonstration video, because that would not be good. It happened to me, and it wasn't my fault. I hadn't forgotten to record the cursor. I had recorded the cursor, but the client insisted I did it at 1280 by 720, which Pixelmator did not like at all, and the cursor would just disappear. And I'm like, where's the mouse pointer gone? Oh, for crying out loud. And I had to put it in post, which is a horrible process. So don't forget to record it if you need it. You then have in here, once you've got that, whether you hide the desktop while you're recording and you want the desktop background and what the frame rate is. So you've got all of that. The camera recording in Capto was a bit big for your liking. You couldn't change it. No, you can't, Jonathan. That's why we're doing it a different way. So although this will let you do that, that's not the best way. And then all you need to do with that is continue, and you get this, which is showing you the size of the screen, 1600 by 900, and you can click on a screen to select it. So obviously, I've got my left-hand screen and I've got my right-hand screen, but I'd probably be recording this one. So you click on there, that's selected the screen. If you made a mistake, you've got the cross at the top. But when you're ready to record, you just press record and you get your 3 countdown And at that point, it's recording, and you've got your indication in the top corner that you're recording. So I'll just open this up. We'll have a look at that. Browse it up or down. That was the one that I've literally just saved as a PDF. A perfect PDF as well. Absolutely perfect. And then I'll close that down. So I'm just doing a sample recording. Now what I will do while it's having a think about it, I'll also go into Keynote. So you can see, I'll go backwards, but it will record your presentation. It's recording everything that you're seeing on the screen right now. So we're actually working backwards to there, but then I'll work forwards again. So when you go from slide to slide, it will just record it. So it's literally just recording what's on the screen and my audio. Okay. I think we were at that point, weren't we? So we'll come out that point. Right. And then you go up there and you stop it. Stop and save. And it comes up in here as a capture, which will be this one here. You then double click it and you have a timeline. And there's all the stuff that we did. And here's what the slides would look like. So I did notice with this one, Capto does a great job with the slides. That is beautifully sharp. Not all recorders do as good a job as Capto has done with that. So Capto's pretty decent with that, I would say. Okay, so that's the basics of what you would need to do. But you then need to assemble the pieces. All right, so if we go back to the organizer, what I actually have in here is the recording that Mike kindly made earlier of his slides. So that's the recording that Mike made. And what I did with it from here, I got it to the right point where I can actually hear what he's saying. So I have audio on there as well. There's the audio waveform at the bottom. I would top it and tail it. So you've got this little thing here in blue, means I've cropped something out. So it's topped and it's tailed. And then I would export it. So up to File, down to Export, and I exported it out as a MOV. And that was my use of Capto done with. Okay, so Capto's dealt with. We'll quit Capto. So Mike also had, while he was doing the recording, he also had here, let's go into this and get it shared with you. He also had here the talking head part there, which was Mike saying hello. Big sigh there, Mike, wasn't there? Mm. So that was Mike's video. Okay, so I've got two things. I've got Mike's talking head and I've got Mike's slides. And you see I've got a little bit at the beginning that I don't need as well. But there's the slides and there's Mike. So what I then needed to do was put the two together. And that was where iMovie came in. So there's iMovie. It did look a little bit different than the last time I looked at it, but as I say, that was a long, long time ago. So first thing to drag into it, the slides. Second thing to drag into it, the talking head. Right, so with the slides, drag the slides down. And it has this concept of like a magnetic timeline. So I'm going to stretch that out so we can see all of that. A bit too far there. Never mind. Right, so that's the beginning. Now, the interesting thing at the beginning is, which is why I would leave it there, if we look down there, there is a tiny audio blip just there, just above where I've got that double-headed arrow. That's an audio cue for me to key up the talking head. So that we're looking at there is the audio on the slides. This is the audio on the talking head. Now, when you drag that on, you get like a little peg. So if we previewed this, we'd have just that, and then Mike appears and away he goes. But obviously, I need that to be keyed up down here. So I need to be as sure as possible that that little blip there and that little blip there are keyed up. At the moment, don't think it is. It's fractionally out. So I would move that a tiny smidgen, which would enable me to move that up there and now have a look at it. So that's where it is there, and that's where it is there. It's not bad. It's not far out. It's near enough. Okay. Then I make a decision, which audio track am I keeping? Because if I try and keep both, you're going to get an echo on it, unless it's lined up absolutely perfectly to within in a tiny fraction of a second. You will get some kind of echo on it, and it will be too loud. Both of those, I think, were recorded with the same audio. Unless you didn't. I don't know what you did with it. But you should be able to tell me, even without hearing it, which one I should keep. Obviously, I'm trying to match up Mike's talking head with the slides. But ballpark, it's close, isn't it? If we look at this gap that's up here and we look at that, it's in the right place. So which audio track should I keep and why? Do you know the answer to that one, Mike? Or should I play them and see which is the best?
Yeah.
I should play them, should I?
Yeah.
Does anybody else think I should play them, or is there something else? What on earth's going on in the chat with links being removed?
Neil said he's got a cool Google sheet that allows you to get the time point from YouTube links.
Cool.
And I can't find a link that he's...
Oh, it's probably ripped it out.
Yeah, that's what I'm
It's
saying.
not gone into pending, has it?
No.
Ping it into Slack. Right. Jonathan said he'd go with the talking head one. Exactly. You can marry up audio to the talking head, but you might as well just keep the talking head. Simple. The lips won't move in time. You can get it to, but you'll always think yourself, is that spot on? So unless the audio on the talking head is absolutely shocking, then lose this one. And you do that by hovering over it, so you get a double-headed arrow, and then dragging it down until it's 0. And now the audio's gone off there. So far, so good. Problem is, we can't see the slides, because there's Mike. Whee! All over the place. So you need to click on the track with Mike in it, the talking head, go up to the menu options, and you have video overlay settings. Click on there and you have the cutaway option, and in there you have picture in picture, and as soon as you do that, it twangs Mike down to a reasonable size, and you can move that around like that. You can make it bigger if you want it, but this is the size it is in Capto. It's right down there and it's that big, and it's far too big. So I would take that down so it's out of the way of the slides. Personally, I don't like it right down the bottom either. And another thing to think about is if that's where you put your watermark, check your screen. That's where mine is. Then you're going to need to move it. Okay, but you can very simply just drag it over the other side or move the watermark. But now you have your picture in picture. Right, so let's go right back to the beginning and let's do a play on that. Oh, fabulous. Well, that's not right back at the beginning, is it? There it is. And there he is in all his glory. So the audio is married up perfectly for the lip sync because that audio came from the talking head video. Your slides are in the background, and as the slides move, they move perfectly. Transitions and animations would have been pretty good as well. It's a very good quality recording that you get from Capto. And there you go. There's the slides changing. And at that point, you're done. All you would then need to do is to produce that video out, which I must admit, not actually done that bit yet. I'm assuming we have a share option. Assuming there's some kind of export somewhere. Is that from up here? Not use this in donkey's years. Oh, you can go straight to YouTube. We could publish it, you. Or we can send it to a file. And it even tells you in here how long it's going to take and what the estimated size is. So you get to put description in. You can tag it. You get to choose whether you have just audio only, if you wanted an audio only version. You get to control the resolution. You also get to control the quality. So best quality ProRes or even custom. And then you can do a faster compression or a better quality compression. The choice is yours. Now, I'm not actually going to do this right now because my machine would melt. And at the moment it's at 38% CPU on Wirecast and it's quite happy. But it's as simple as that. That's all you need to do with it. If I were you, what I would do is export it at the highest quality possible. So never mind this faster compression, go for better quality, go for ProRes, go for as high as you can go on everything. And the reason I would do that, and it says like it's still going to take 5 minutes 11, that's probably the duration of the video, but it's going to be 5.8 gig, and that's only an estimate. But the thing is, once you've got the high quality one, the perfect one, you can then use something like Handbrake or Compressor to make the alternative versions without having to keep going back in here and re-exporting it. You would create yourself a full quality master and you could do it from there. Right, Simon says, sorry I may have missed it. Why wouldn't you use a clapperboard for audio sync? You could use a clapperboard for audio sync. You will find if the video is longer than 5 to 10 minutes, you'll get drift anyway. It just happens because you're using different applications and it wouldn't perfectly marry up. You could have done that at the beginning. Mike was left to his own devices, so I didn't get one. But I do have a clapperboard in there. Or just clap, literally just at the beginning and you're good to go. The other thing to think about if you're thinking about synchronizing though, it's not just using the audio to sync. You may want something on the screen to sync. Mike actually at one point put his hand up to the camera. I wondered what he was doing. But there's more than one camera in there. He was trying to work out which one he was recording from. Bless him. That made perfect sense, actually. It was a good use of that, as long as you didn't touch the lens. No. So you could do with a visual thing as well. What I do when I'm training, make a note, Mike, visual clapperboard. I have a slide in my presentation that's got in it the take number. So basically it's a clapperboard and it's a visual clapperboard. So it has the take number, the date, what video it is, what course it's for, etc. And it's at the beginning of the video. So I do the visual thing as well. I actually do it on a slide. I have a slide with it on. But you could actually, if you're doing talking head, which I don't do, you could actually have a clapperboard. I'll show you the clapperboard next week if you like. And you could actually write it on there and then use both. Put that in front of the camera and you'd get an audio clip as well. So no, you didn't miss anything. Mike was left to his own devices. So Jonathan is saying, gets the time file size is totally wrong. Right, hang on. If Capto allowed you to change the size of the camera and placement, it would be great as a very rough and ready approach, but this method will still be brilliant for more polished up applications. Indeed, I actually thought Capto was going to do it, because it said picture in picture, so I did it all. And then I'm like, how do I move that? And there was none of it. A flasherboard. Yeah, basically. That would work well. This way would allow you to do, it gives you far more flexibility and options, Jonathan. You can bring images into here and you can put watermarks on and all kinds of stuff. So it does keep it incredibly flexible. Right, that's one way to do it. So then you would output that, basically, is what you would do. All right, let's get rid of that. And I'm just going to quickly show you what you would do if you didn't take that approach, if you took the other approach, which is you would still need, so if you don't want to do the Capto thing and you want to do it totally free, you'd still need QuickTime. Again, it can record your screen or the webcam, but you would want it for the webcam. You would need your presentation and you would need to export your presentation. And then what you would do is you would have your audio coming from QuickTime. You would have your screen, what people are seeing, coming from Keynote, but not in real time. And the webcam would be coming from QuickTime. You'd still need iMovie to assemble it, but iMovie can handle it. It can cope with it. A brilliant use of software, and the brief matched perfectly. That's because it's in setup, isn't it, Jonathan? You do like a bit of setup. I was pleased it was in setup. I was very pleased. So I have the presentation from Mike. So if I go back a bit, I do have the Keynote file. So I'm going to open that Keynote file. This is the Keynote file. So let's take that full screen. And there it all is. And what I would need to do with it is export it. So I have an export, file export, and you choose images. Now, you may be wondering, why don't I export it as a movie? Because it's not a good idea, trust me. You've got to tell it what timings to use, and they're not going to match up with Mike. So leave the movie alone. Just do the graphics. Take the highest you can. I usually take TIFF, but I'm going to go for PNG this time, so they're a little bit smaller. And then you decide how many you want. Well, in here, the last one was black, but I'm just going to do them all. And then you export them as individual images. And I'll put that on the desktop. So Mike called it access files. So I'll call it access files. And it takes each one of these images out as an individual graphic. Now, there was in there one more thing to look at, which is if there is a build on a slide, you do have the option to create an image for each stage of the build. Now, why would you do that? Well, you may want to recreate any animation that you had, basically frame by frame. There's one situation when I do that, and I'm going to show it you next week when we look at rolling edits. So for now, we're not going to worry about that. I'm going to close that down. And here are the slides. So it takes the name that you've given them and it tags on a number at the end. And there are the slides. We're not going to need that black one, so we'll get rid of that. So we've got 10 slides. Right. So the alternative way of doing it in iMovie, we'll take it totally from the top. So we're going to get rid of that. Whole thing's gone. In this situation, which is the core piece, which is the background, and it's the images. So you drag and drop the images from where they are into your media bin, and then you start assembling them by putting them on the timeline. So there's the first one. Now, straight away, you've got a problem. If I play that, you should see it. Let's move over here. Right, let's just move through it. Can we see it at the end easier? Come on. It's jumping. Why are you jumping? Let's do it from there. See the problem? It's moving. It's automatically got a Ken Burns on it. So as I'm going through it, see the problem? Starts large, goes to the full size. It's got a Ken Burns on it. I wondered what the heck was happening. But with it selected, how did I get rid of that now? It wasn't in there, was it? It was one of these. Or was it that one? No, that's your colour. I found it in one of these. There it is. So it's automatically got a Ken Burns on it, which is great if it's images. Doesn't really work if it's slides. So I just set that to fit, and that got rid of the Ken Burns. But as soon as I went back in and added the next one, Ken Burns was back. So go into the preferences, Command and comma, and you've got photo placement, Ken Burns. Just set that to fit. You can also determine the photo duration. Now, I'm never going to want a slide on the screen for only 4 seconds. So actually, I could probably take that up to sort of 20 seconds comfortably, and I'd need to do less editing. And then the next thing you do is grab the next one and drag that on. Then you have here the transition between them. See this? What you're looking at there is a rolling edit. That is a rolling edit. But don't ask me how good that's going to be in here, because I don't use it. But that's a rolling edit. Basically, I'm saying this first one I need for less time. So I grab it and drag it back. But it's not leaving a gap on the timeline. It's pulling the second slide back with it. It's rolling between the two pieces of media, and that's a rolling edit, which we will look at properly next week in a scenario where it's far more understandable. And basically, you just carry on doing that. So that one was 20 seconds. You then go and get the next one, and you put that on. It is more time consuming, as you can see. And when you're done and you've got that sorted out, then you add Mike to the mix and you start doing the same thing again. So there is benefits to doing that. In this circumstance, I'd be tempted to do it the Capto way. Just because Mike did it in one take and it's not giving me any benefits to do it as individual images. What I'll do next week when I show you rolling edits is show you a situation where rolling edits and images are definitely the best way to go. But in this case, if you've got it in one take and it's all perfect, then you wouldn't need to use the images. But if you do need to use the images, that's how you do it. In terms of getting Mike picture in picture, it's exactly the same as it was before. You make sure that you've got it as picture in picture, you put him down the bottom, and it doesn't matter if it's graphics or a video, he's going to be over the top of it. And as you wander through here, the slide changes and Mike starts talking. Fabulous. So I'm glad Jonathan's already said there, trying to get back to where I was with my slides. I'm glad Jonathan's already said it made the brief. Excellent. It's a really cost-effective way of doing it. If you just want, if you could do it twice, you could do it for free. If you don't want the Capto bit and you're going to use QuickTime, if you did the slides, in fact, no, do the talking head first and then play the talking head back to yourself while you whip through the slides and have QuickTime then record the slides and then merge the two together. That would be totally free. Right, freebies. I've got some good freebies. So I can't remember if I think I put some links in. Oh, good. Right. We have up here, I don't know why we have that on there. Why do we have that arrow pointing to it? Interesting. But basically, we have there some themes that are all free for a week from Creative Market. So they are WordPress themes. They are heckishly expensive usually. But they are all totally free right now. The next freebie is a classic. I want Mike to use this at work. Remember a few weeks ago we talked about Zoom, and one of the things we said about Zoom was Zoom being the collaboration platform for webinars, etc. these days, and family quizzes, christenings, funerals, you name it, we've attended them on Zoom. Never thought I'd see the day, but I have. Zoom has a great feature that works brilliantly, even if you don't have a green screen, which is its virtual backgrounds feature. So you can have either static images, and those are some of the, it gives you 3 static images. It gives you the bridge, it gives you the grass, and it gives you that kind of outer space one. It also gives you video. So there's 2 video ones at the bottom there. And they're video when they've got that little arrow on them. There's also custom ones. I went into one of the conferences, didn't I? And I had that background and Mike had that background. That was the serenading singing night. It was good night, that. Right? So those are the backgrounds that you've got. And you can, obviously, you can see that's a custom one. You can add your own. But this was the problem. When I came to find some, it's really difficult to find some that look realistic in any way, shape or form, or even that look like right. You wouldn't think, looking at the 5 they've given you, it was that difficult, but it is. If you're looking for a picture of an office so you can pretend to be in the office, the view is all wrong. You know, the angle's not right, or you're too big or you're too small. It just doesn't work. Anyway, the BBC this week put out this absolute classic, which was The Joy of Sets. And it's all the BBC sets. So you've got the sitcoms. Mike wanted Swap Shop. There was Doctor Who. There was all sorts. Dixon of Dock Green, Quatermass. I must admit, I picked some that were my favourites. But they literally put these out, not just as a set. They said you can use these for backgrounds on all of your video conferencing. I fancied the weather one, Mike. And I also picked a couple of others as well. But they are actually, when you look at them, they would look perfect in Zoom. It's classic. The ones I thought were brilliant were the Doctor Who ones. I thought the Doctor Who one was brilliant. That was the one, because there's a screwdriver on the floor there as well, which I thought was a classic. That actually looks quite shabby as a set, but that was the set when I used to watch it when K9 was there. Another one I couldn't not give a shout out to was Play School, Through the Arched Window.
Oh, Neil's a Tiswas boy.
Oh no, I watched the other side. The Phantom Flanflinger.
Phantom Flanflinger.
And then, of course, there was Match of the Day for Mike. You've had the crown off that. See that there? That there. That is the Premier League trophy. that United used to win regularly, and City have had it ever since. But if you look there, there's a crown on it. Well, the first year that was won, United won it. And our seats were really, really close to where it was presented. And who had it when it was coming down the stairs with Brucey? Mickey Phelan. Somebody had this who was walking down the stairs, and Mike reached out and we're all touching it. It's like, oh, I've touched the Premier League trophy. Mike reaches out, touches the crown, ends up, it comes off in his hand. The footballer looked absolutely mortified. Mike handed it back to him. Since then, that used to fall off regularly every year. Since then, they've welded it on. It doesn't come off anymore, Mike.
And done the presentation on the pitch.
And done the presentation on the pitch, yes, so Mike doesn't get his hands on it anymore. Classic, but true. Tom Baker was my Doctor Who. I totally agree. He was my Doctor Who. Because he had the scarf on, he was cool, and he had the dog. I wanted K9. I cannot tell you how much I wanted K9. Right, so we're on to you and your access forms and reports.
We are when I've set my things going.
That's okay. I'm coming out and I'm coming over and I'm going to find your screen. You let me know when you're ready and then I can hand over to you. He really should be ready, shouldn't he? You know those slides? You're about to see them for real with the proper accompaniment. Are you ready now, Mike?
No, I'm not.
Oh, he's forgotten to press record.
No,
I didn't forget to press record tonight.
I pressed record.
I didn't dare. You've lost your notes.
Yeah, the notes, it's this silly keynote thing where you can't use your second screen.
You can. Oh, I see what you mean. Well, if you'd have put your notes in your slides, then you would have done.
Yeah.
He's getting his iPad out.
Getting my iPad out for me notes.
Well, that didn't mean that you had to hide that screen. So if you put the slides back, I can switch.
Right. There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
And you are live, Mike.
I am live. Okay.
You are live.
Right, let me get to my notes.
Neil says, how are you doing, Jonathan? Are you feeling strong? I don't think he's insinuating that you're about to send Jonathan to sleep.
I probably am. Right, it's that time of the week.
It's time for Jonathan to go to sleep.
You are going to sleep.
No, I know. I mustn't do that because it would be cheating, wouldn't it?
I used to do that to Maya. It didn't work.
No, and we mustn't disturb the lovely Lola. Anyway, on with Access.
Right, okay. Part 3 of Access is forms and reports. But before I get on to forms and reports, I just want to talk about sort of best practice for storing your database. I think I've mentioned this as we've gone along, but a few questions have prompted a few things, and I did also promise Neil that I would show connecting it to SharePoint, so I'll be doing that shortly. So an Access database is a single file, as you know from what we've done in the past couple of weeks, that contains tables with the data, queries, forms and reports. For a single user, the file can be stored locally on their hard drive, and then making a backup is as simple as just backing up that file because everything is self-contained. You've got this Access file, everything's in there. You could store that single file in the cloud, so Dropbox, OneDrive, etc., etc. Except that is not recommended. Now, you're probably thinking why? And the answer is when you request the file from the cloud, the entire file gets downloaded to your local drive. And Access database files can be pretty big. They can be sort of 20, 30, 40 meg and even bigger. As I mentioned last week, you can go into an Access database and compact and repair it, but they do grow again in size. So the whole database file gets downloaded to your local drive from your cloud. So you're basically sending large files across the internet, and it can risk corruption. And then when you've finished, if you've got to make changes, even if it's like fixing one typo in one record, the entire file has to be uploaded back to to the cloud. So in my view, it's a no-no. Another option is to store a file on a network share. And this really is only if you are sharing the file with other people. If the file is just being used for yourself, as an example, Deb and her genealogy database, I'm assuming, I could be wrong, but I'm assuming you're not sharing that with anybody, then you're not going to need to worry about sticking on a network share. You can just store that locally. But in many cases, particularly in a work environment, you do need to share that database with other people. So one option is to store the database on a network share, and that then allows multiple people to access the database at the same time. It does support record locking, so it'll make sure that two people can't edit the same record at the same time. But the disadvantage is that it can reduce performance because the whole database file has to be sent across the network. I did mention last week or the week before about splitting the database, and Access has this tool which allows you to split a database. So you end up with two files. The tables, including the data, live in an Access database on the file server or the back end. And when you do this splitting, you can name that file anything you like, but Access gives it a suggested name of the original database name _BE, as in back end. If you want to change it, you can do, but that's the default. So you end up with two Access databases. One sits on the server, and that has the tables in it and with the data, and the other sits on the front end, and that has the queries, forms and reports. And when you look at the objects panel in that database, the one on the front end, you have linked tables. So the linked tables are just pointers to the real tables that are on the actual network share. Each user has a copy of the front end database, and that means that they can independently develop their own queries, forms and reports without affecting other users. Now, if you do decide to go down that split database route, you might be tempted to store the back end in the cloud. Makes sense, but avoid it for the same reason that I mentioned earlier, because the entire back end file has to be downloaded to the local PC. And I've found that front-end Access databases have issues connecting to cloud-based back-end databases. If you don't want to store the database locally because maybe it goes against company policy, or because it needs to be shared with several people, and maybe your company has decommissioned network shares, this is a situation I'm familiar with, then I would suggest linking the Access database to a SharePoint list, and I'll be demoing this shortly. This, of course, assumes that your company uses SharePoint. And finally, I'm going to mention this because I was asked about it a couple of weeks ago. Neil asked about it, and that is ASP, or Active Server Pages. ASP is a Microsoft technology, and it lets web pages interact with databases. Now those databases, we're talking really Access and SQL Server because they are Microsoft databases. And by interact, what I mean is you can use ASP to send data from a form on a web page to a database, and use ASP to send data from the database onto a web page. You have a form on a web page, and people fill it in, click submit, and you have ASP code, which is actually VB script code, that basically is the form handler. It sends the data back to the Access database. Or you have ASP code on a web page which says, go to this table in this database and pull the data down and display it in a certain way. The database will live on the server. It'll either live on the web server or it'll live on a dedicated database server. Really depends on the host. So that was just a few slides just to talk about different ways that you can store your database and the pros and cons of each. Let me see if there's any questions.
Jonathan doesn't like SharePoint.
Jonathan, yeah, there's a lot of people that don't like SharePoint, Jonathan. A lot of people at AstraZeneca that don't like SharePoint, but
It seems a bit primitive to me.
it's not primitive. It's not primitive. It's actually very powerful, but people just don't like it.
I think it's the front end.
Yeah, yeah. People just don't like it, but we're stuck with it. You have a love-hate relationship with SharePoint. I think most people do. Most people do. Yeah, it is. It's brilliant as a company Dropbox or as a library. But yeah, I agree with you on that web pages thing. Okay, come out of this Keynote file, and I'm going to talk about SharePoint. Not in any great degree. I could spend an hour next week talking about SharePoint, but I think that I was going to say that would send Jonathan to sleep.
That
maybe,
would do nicely.
Yeah, maybe I should do that. No, seriously, let's be serious for a second. SharePoint. There's a lot of talk about SharePoint. Some people don't know what it is, and that's probably those people who have not used it. So I guess I would describe SharePoint as a cloud-based collaborative tool from Microsoft, and its primary audience is corporates, educational establishments and small businesses. It's probably not really a tool for home users. At AstraZeneca, we've got thousands of SharePoint sites. SharePoint sites are used by teams, by projects, and by departments. So here, I've got a typical example of a SharePoint site. This is the home page. So I've just mocked up a home page, not very exciting. But on a home page, you can have a graphic, you can have some text, you can have some headings, you can have some hyperlinks. But what you also have, and you do have to have a home page, and it can be as basic or as advanced as you like. It's really just a jump off point, and most people use it just to kind of explain what the site is about. It is a bit niche, Jonathan. I don't think many of you will admin a SharePoint site, but I'm really just giving it a bit of context. So as you say, so one of you said, I think Jonathan said, the libraries allow you to store documents. So I've got a library here called Training Documentation, and it's like you said, it's like a Dropbox. It's a place where you can store documents, share those documents with other people, set up permissions to define who can access the documents, etc., etc. But what I want to focus on here is lists, because lists tend to be the forgotten part of SharePoint. Most people think SharePoint is really just a document repository, but it is more than that. So I've got a couple of lists set up. I've got contact details. So, the idea is that you're running a project or you're running a team and you want to have a list of everyone's contact details. So you set up a custom list and you put all the information in there. Another list I've got here is a task list. So again, you don't need the power of Microsoft Project. You don't want the expense of Microsoft Project licenses. You just really need a list of tasks. You don't need to do anything cool and groovy with it apart from keep that list up to date. So SharePoint is an ideal tool. So having kind of talked about what SharePoint is, how does this link in with Access? Well, Access can act as a front end to a SharePoint list. So let's say, for example, I want to connect an Access database to this task list. What I will do is I'll actually start from the Access side, not from the SharePoint side. I've got an Access database that I've already set up called SharePoint Demo. And in that database, I've already got 3 tables, a load of queries. It's actually the same database I used last week. And I'll go to External Data, New Data Source, From Online Services, SharePoint List. It remembers the previous SharePoint sites I've visited. So this one here is the name of the SharePoint site we've just been looking at. I want to link to the data source by creating a linked table. I don't want to import it because there would be no link between them then. So I'll leave it set to link the data source and click Next. And that will pick up all of the lists from that SharePoint site. A lot of them are actually libraries as well, because it sort of considers libraries to be lists, but we're after real lists, and it's the task one. So I'll select it and click OK. And it's important, well, it hasn't imported the data, it's created a linked table in here. So when I double click to open it, what it's done is it's pulled the data in from that SharePoint list. The idea is that if you wanted to produce queries and forms and reports, because SharePoint doesn't really have that functionality, then you do it in Access, but you don't store the data in Access. And if you edit any of the data in here, so let's assign research topics to John, and then switch back to the list in here. Just do a refresh. It's still showing us Mike. Why is it showing us Mike? Maybe it takes a bit of time to update. Hang on. I know why, because I haven't moved away from that record. You see the little pencil we still had? That meant that record was still in edit mode. So now let's go back and refresh. And there we go. It's now updated to John. So you can update the data in the Access database, or you can update the data in the SharePoint list, and that will ripple through to the Access database. The other way is if you wanted to split the database. So as an example, I've got my student data in this Access database. I don't want my student data in the Access database. I want to split the database in the way I showed you with the slides. So I want to take this data and stick it in SharePoint. So all I have in this Access database is my queries, forms and reports. To do that, I'll use Database Tools and SharePoint. I need to choose the SharePoint site I want to use. And it's actually then taking all of the lists, all of the tables. You can't choose which table to split. Does it come up with some errors? Yeah, there was an error copying the data. I think, I did see this yesterday. Duplicate output destination title. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Right, I will do that again, but I'm going to go into the students table and delete that, or I can just rename that column, can't I? I'll just call it, what's an alternative for title?
As in job title?
As in Mr. Mrs. Miss.
Designation.
That's a good one. Designation. Okay, so I'll try that again. It's because whenever you create a list in SharePoint, it automatically creates a column called title. That's like a default column. So it's caused a duplicate. See if it works this time. Well, Yep, so there we go. So what it's done is it's created 3 lists on the SharePoint site, and then it's created the linked tables to them. And if I go to the SharePoint site and I go to view the site contents, then I will see the students table, the grades table, and the classes table. There they are. There's my designation. Okay, so I hope that helps you. Salutation, prefix. There we go. We've got some alternatives.
Whatever you want.
I went with designation. Okay, so I hope that bit was useful. I hope you found that useful, Neil, on SharePoint. Let's just go see if there's any questions before I then go on and look at forms and reports. How do you get your access file into a list? Ah, right. Okay, I've just shown you that. No, I think it's that. You haven't put any lists in your SharePoint sites, Johnny. You tried to convert Excel files to lists. That should work. That should work as long as the data in Excel is set up correctly. How quick is the access to those SharePoint lists in real time? How quick is the access? You mean if you've got the data in Access? Or if you're saying if you're accessing the SharePoint site from Access, Neil, then it's pretty immediate. Pretty immediate. I mean, if I close this down and open up the SharePoint, that's the backup file. Open up the SharePoint demo file. There you go. It's pretty immediate. Straight away. My SharePoint sites are in the cloud, so obviously it's going to depend on your network connection, but it's pretty fast. Can you edit the data types in SharePoint? If I right click on here and go to design view, it's not going to let me modify the table here, but you can do it in SharePoint, yes. You can go into a SharePoint list and you can modify quite a number of properties about each column, so yes. Okay, so keep the questions coming, but I'm going to go on to look at reports. So I'll do reports and then I'll do forms. Okay. Right. In my MacBites Academy database, which is the students database, we've got a students table, a grades table, a classes table. We were using them the last couple of weeks for queries and things, and there's some queries that I set up. Now, the idea of a report is that you can take the data from a single table, or you can take the data from multiple tables via a query, or you can take the data from a single table via a query and display it in a particular layout. So what a report does is it gives you a layout, whereas a query gives you information, but it displays it in a tabular layout. You have no control over the layout in a query. It displays the information as a table. Whereas a report is all about design. Now, in my demo report has actually got the data in a tabular format, but it's got other stuff as well, like a main heading. It's grouped the data by what grade they're on. We've got the alternate rows shaded. We've got borders around each item, which I don't particularly like, but that's a default setting. But you can basically design the report any way you like. The way I often relate what reports are to talk about a mail merge. Most people understand what a mail merge is. It's where you have data in a database or an Excel file, and you have a document, usually in Word, and that document has a certain layout to it. It might be a letter, it might be mailing labels, it could be pretty much anything. We used Mail Merge for generating the table cards, didn't we?
We did.
For our Catinian dues.
And the bingo cards.
Yeah.
For WWDC.
Yeah. We used to do it with pages and
numbers,
but
go there.
Don't go there. When Microsoft Apple ripped out the Mail Merge functionality from pages. But yeah, as a concept, a report is like the Mail Merge document, and then you pull the data in and the data is displayed according to the layout. So I'm going to show you how to create a report, and I'm going to base the report on this query here, which is a list of all the students and their name and address. A query, of course, can include criteria. So like this query only shows the people who are on grade 1 and grade 2. And if you built a report on that query, then when you run the report, it will only show the people on grade 1 or grade 2. So it does take account of any criteria that you've set up. But this particular query is extracting all the data from one table. So where do we start? Well, we go to create, and we have a number of options with report. I usually go for report design, but there is actually a predefined layout for labels. It's a bit like your Mail Merge, where you choose labels and then you choose the type of label you want in terms of the size and the layout. There is a wizard which does guide you through the process of creating a report, but as with all these wizards, the plus side is it guides you through, the downside is it guides you through, and what I mean by that is it's a little bit restricting. Obviously, it's a good starting point. You could take what the wizard generates and then go back and edit it, but I think for maximum learning benefit, I would ignore the wizard. In the real world, you might want to use it, try it out, but from a learning point of view, let's actually start with report design. Okay, so create report design. And this is our report design screen. Over on the right hand side, we've got a property sheet. Don't really need it that wide. That normally is actually closed by default, and then you can just open it up with that property sheet button on the ribbon. The report also has a number of sections to it. So you have the page header. Anything that you put in the page header, as you would expect, would appear at the top of each page. So that could be a page number, it could be your company name, it could be the date it's printed, for an example. Reports traditionally have been printed. That's the purpose of them. They've been there for printing. But these days people are probably printing less and less, particularly if you're working from home and you don't want to use your own toner and your own paper.
Don't go there with paper.
Somebody put, actually, digressing slightly, there's been quite a few comments on Workplace at work where people have been asking how they can connect their computer to a work printer. So
what's the point?
I'm thinking
they're not at work.
Yeah, but I think some of them are working from home and then they're planning to nip in and pick up a printout.
These are the type of people who need grounding in lead boots.
Maybe they don't have a home printer or something. I don't know.
Why do you need to print out something anyway? Email it.
I totally agree, but that's what people are like.
Hence it being too peoply.
Anyway, I digress. So yes, that's the page header. The details section, anything you put in there is repeated once for each record. And then you've got a page footer, and obviously anything that goes in there goes at the bottom of the page. Now there's other things that you can add as well. For example, there's a report header and a report footer. Anything that you put in the report header goes at the top of the whole report, so it appears above the page header of page 1, and anything you put in the report footer appears at the bottom of the last page of the report below the page footer. You've also got grouping sections, which I'll come on to shortly. Now, one thing to be aware of is the size of these sections in terms of the height is the actual size, or well, not the size, but the actual space that it will take up on the, and I'm loath to use the word printing after the discussion we've just had, but the output. So whether it's printed or whether it's output to screen as a preview. So what I mean is, if I was to put some text in here, so if I was to put some text there, then the page header would have text in it and then a big gap. If I was to put some content in the detail section, say just on this first row of the grid, and then leave 6 or 7 blank rows before the next one, then it would leave a big gap in between each item. I'll show you what I mean shortly when we actually start designing the report, but the point I'm trying to make is that the actual height of each section is kind of reality, whereas in some report design systems the height isn't, the height that you see isn't the real height, but in Access it is. Okay, just have a look at questions. I think we're talking about printing, aren't we?
We are. Somebody who prints out every email. You used to work with somebody like that, didn't you?
I think I probably did. Okay, so for the page header, let's say for the page header, I'm not going to put anything in the page header. I could put my name in the page header. So to do that, I need to click on the AA button on the ribbon. Okay, you'll find that on the design tab, the AA button, which is a label. And then you move your mouse into the page header section and you click, and that adds a labeling. So I will add my name in there. I can move that to wherever I want it. So let's say I want it to be at the top left. That means it's going to print, in double quotes, my name at the top left of every page. But it's then going to leave quite a big gap between my name and the data, because the data from the tables will go into the detail section. And this is what I was trying to say before. You don't really want that big gap, so this is why you would close the gap up. So you're trying to make the height of the page header section the actual size it would be in the output. So I'm trying to avoid the word print. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some data into the detail section. So I will click on Add Existing Fields. And I've just realised what I haven't yet done is told it the data source. So let's close the field list down and go back to the property sheet. And in the property sheet, we can click that drop down arrow and we can tell it which section of the report I want to set or look at the properties of. And for me, it's the entire report. And when you go to the property sheet, you get 5 tabs. Each of these tabs gives you properties that relate to that section. So these are the format properties, these are the data properties, these are the event properties, these are the aptly named other properties. And if you go to all, that is all of the properties. At this point, I've started to design a report and I haven't told Access what the report's attached to. And that's the record source. So I click the drop down arrow next to record source and I choose the name of the query, which is QRY student addresses. Hopefully now you can understand the naming convention that I talked about last week and the week before. Because if you created a query called student addresses and you had a table called student addresses, then how would you know which was which? You wouldn't. So have some kind of naming convention, even if you don't use the Lazinski one, the QRY and TBL, etc. So QRY student addresses. Then I'll click add existing fields, and that's better. That's showing me all the fields from that table. I'm going to drag in title and I'm going to drag in surname. In fact, I'll drag them all in. Now, I'm not making them neat at this point. I'm just literally dragging them in. And as you drag a field in, it gives you the field itself and the label. So the one on the left is the label, so the heading. The one on the right is the field. How do we know that? Because if I bring up the property sheet again and click on the label, it shows you that I've got a label selected. It tells me it's a label and the name of it is label 5. That one is a label and it's label 4. So each label is given a name to identify it. Whereas if I click on this one, it tells me it's a text box which is called city, a text box which is called street, etc. Now I've just decided on a whim that I want to put the headings or the labels in the page header section so they appear at the top of each page. So I just need to expand the detail section and then cut and paste. Now the thing about cut and paste is that it always sticks it at the top left of the section. So we've got title, first name, and I'll line these up neatly shortly, surname. See what I'm doing? I'm just clicking in the page header and pasting. So title, first name, surname, street, and city. There we go. Okay, so let's line these up. So what I tend to do actually is I tend to line up the fields first and then line up the labels afterwards. So we'll have title, then we'll have first name, we'll have surname, we'll have street, and I think I need to make this whole thing wider so I can fit in the city like that. You can resize these boxes. And then I've got title and first name. Now, if I select that, the first name label, and then hold the shift key down and click on the first name field, I can then go up to arrange, align left to make sure they line up on the left, and do the same thing with surname and the same thing with street and city. I'll move those across a bit. And city, move that over, move that over. Okay, I also need to make sure all of these are lined up, say, to the bottom. I think they were. I don't think these are quite lined up. They look a little bit higgledy-piggledy. That's better. Okay, so at this point, if I run the report by going to Home, View, Report View, you can see what it looks like. So there is my page header with my name and the headings. And then we've got the first row of data, the next row of data, the next row of data, and so on. And it's leaving a huge gap, isn't it? It's leaving a huge gap between each name. If I actually switch to print preview, now we get to actually see the page header on each page. So it's got my name and the column headings on each page. I don't know how many pages there are. There's a lot, because it's leaving this huge gap. And the reason it's leaving this huge gap, if I go back to close the print preview, then go back to the design view, is this here. So I will make that a lot narrower in terms of the height. I would do if I could grab hold of the right bit. Come on. I've done this once. Oh, hang on. Ah, there we go. I was trying to grab hold of that. That's the scroll bar. It's further down. It's off screen. There we go. So drag it quite a way up. Even further than that. There we go. So now the details section is actually not very tall. Well, what effect has that had? There you go. That looks a lot better. But there's still things I want to do. For example, I don't want to have boxes around the data, and I don't want to have alternate shaded rows, and maybe I want to display the titles in bold. So let's go back to the design, select all the titles. I'm just holding the shift key down to select them, and then I can make them bold and maybe make the text bigger. And then to remove the borders around those boxes, select them all, and in the properties it's under the format and it's border style. Set the border style to transparent. It didn't used to have solid as a default. It actually used to be no border as a default. That's better. If you wanted to leave the alternate shading in, you can do. Some people find it easier to read that way. But if you want to remove the alternate shading, then you need to select the actual detail section itself, and then in the properties under format, set alternate back color to no color. And there we go. That looks much better. Now, obviously, I need to alter the width of some of those boxes for like surname and first name, because I made the text bigger. Okay, I'm going to save this report. I'm going to call it RPT addresses. I haven't finished yet, but as with most things, you should save them as you go along. Now, I want to group the data, and you'll notice there is a grouping section at the bottom of the screen. So we click Add Group, and I want to group by surname. Now, you might think that's a bit odd. Why would I group by surname? Then we get all the Thomases together and all the Gileses together, etc., etc. But that's not what I want. I want to do it like a directory. I want to group it by all the people with whose surname begins with A and B and C, etc. So I choose surname. I want to have A on top, which is the default. And then I click on More. And instead of by saying entire value, I'll say by first character. This is certainly a lot simpler than many years ago, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it was a nightmare.
When going back to sort of Access 97, which was probably about the last version you used, was it?
No, probably 2K.
But it was certainly easier in this version, because you've got a whole host of options here that you can literally just choose from a drop-down list. So I want it with a header section, That's the group header. I don't want a group footer, etc., etc. So what it's now done is it's now created this surname header, which appears under the page header but above the detail. So in effect, that is a group header. And you can group on more than one item, and for each group you'll have the option to have a group header. But what I'm going to do in that group header is I'm going to add in a field that will just show the first letter of that group. So in effect, it's the first letter of the surname. Before I do that though, I will run this report so you can see what it looks like. So what it's done is it's created separate groups. That's one group, then that's the next group. You can see there's a definite gap between them. That grey box is actually the group header, which is empty. So if I put something into the group header that says pick out the first character of the surname, even though they're all different surnames, what they do have in common is the first character is the same. You did have to edit property sheets, Neil. Yeah, this is a lot simpler. So let's go back to the design. And I'm going to do it, there's a couple of ways to do it. One way would be to actually add the surname itself in, copy and paste that in there, and then change it to only display the first character. But I'm going to do it a different way. I'm going to add in a text box. So click on text box and click in the surname header section. I'm going to delete the label. So just select the label and press the delete key. And then I'm going to move the text box over to the left. You'll notice that the text box says unbound in it. That means that it's not linked to any data in the table. And that's what we want. These text boxes are bound to fields in the table, but this text box is unbound. Now you can format that text box any way you want to. So we could make the text bigger, for example, maybe make it bold. But at the moment, there's nothing in there. So again, if I was to preview the report, you wouldn't see anything. So with that text box selected, I need to either go to the All section or go to the Data section. And this is where I basically create a formula to tell it where the data's coming from. The good news is a lot of the formulas are quite similar to Excel. So if you're familiar with a lot of the formulas and functions in Excel, then you'll be familiar with these. So if I just want the first character of the surname, just like I would do in Excel, I'll put equals left, open brackets, which is a function. The string is the surname field, and as soon as I type SU, it picks up surname in that list, and I can double click it. Then a comma, and then 1, and close the brackets. So it actually displays the formula in here. Now, the 3 dots just to the right of the arrow, it brings up the expression builder. And I can either search for the function in this list here. So there's the left function. And then replace string with the name of the field, which is in MacBites Academy. Now, hang on. There it is, report addresses. So it's the current report surname. And then the length is 1. So you've got a couple of ways to do it. You can do it with that expression builder, or you can just type it in. And it stuck the equals sign in. So if I now run that report or preview that report, there we go. You can see that we've got A, B, C, etc., etc. I just want to get rid of this grey block. I don't really want that grey block. So let's go back to the design view and click onto the surname header itself. Go to the format section of the property sheet and set the alternate back colour to no colour. I also want to get rid of this box, this border. So again, go to the design, select that, and that is also under format. That is border style. And there it is. There is our report. Maybe I want a little bit more of a gap before the letter. And I can do that. That's the second time today I've said something and it set Alexa off. I don't know if any of you heard that, but Alexa just said, sorry, I don't know that.
She says that a lot.
She does, particularly when I'm talking.
Yeah, it's funny.
No, I was delivering some Power Pivot training today, and Alexa just said something. And I said to the people I was training, I don't know if you heard that, but I've just set Alexa off. If it's not Alexa, it's Siri. Now I've lost my train of thought. Oh yes, I want to bring that down a bit and bring that
Alexa,
down a bit.
have you got Mike's train of thought?
Very funny.
Sorry.
Very funny. Right, so there we go. Don't keep saying Alexa, says Jonathan.
See, she totally ignored you that time.
Yes, she's ignored me. So there is one example of a report. You know, I could spend a whole day on reports, but I just wanted to give you an example, a good example of reports. And, you know, they don't have to be laid out in a tabular format. This one happens to be, but they don't have to be. You like reports, don't you?
I do. I think reports are the strength of the thing.
They are. They are. I mean, you can store your data anywhere. And this is one of the beauties. You can store your data in Excel. You can store your data in SharePoint. You can store your data in SQL Server. But those apps do not have the reporting capabilities that Access has. So Access, you know, reports are one of Access's strengths. So, any questions on that?
You keep setting Jonathan's echo off.
Well, at least Jonathan's still awake to turn his echo off.
Is that the dog?
I don't think so.
Oh.
It might have been. Go and check.
Let me see what she's up to. That's what I have cameras for, Mike.
It is very powerful. It is very powerful.
Do you remember the alternative to that? Crystal Reports.
Crystal Reports.
It used to cost a fortune.
I never used Crystal Reports.
I did. It was very good. You could hook it up to various data sources, but it was very expensive. I don't know if it's still going.
I don't know. But yes, it was a good app, was Crystal Reports. Okay, so that is reports, or at least that is reports as far as I'm going to take it today. Hopefully that's been useful to you, giving you some ideas and some examples of what you could do with a report. So I'm going to go on now and look at forms. Although before I do, Paul's saying great app, Crystal Reports.
It was very powerful. At its peak, it did more than Access, hence people buying it.
Yeah.
But with it being totally separate and the licensing issue, and then you're off again. And they have improved that beyond all recognition.
Yeah, just before I go on, Neil has said, Alexa, remind Jonathan to stay awake. You are going to sleep.
He's not tonight, I can tell. He's far too frisky tonight to
be
going asleep.
I think it's the Jonathan, how much Toblerone have you eaten?
Yep, it was the chocolate.
Because I've only had one square. Or even triangle.
I was going to say, you had a square? It's not the big one. The
It's not
big
the big
one's
one.
being kept.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay, enough of chocolate.
Really? Oh.
Yes. Right, forms. Let's have a look at forms. Let's save this report and look at forms. Okay, forms I've talked about quite a bit. Forms are mainly for inputting data. So on here, I've got, let me reports. That'll do me no good. I've got one form. It's just a very plain basic form, but each field on that form is linked to a field in a table. And the idea is when you open the form, you're looking at record 1. So it's exactly the same as opening the table and looking at record 1. And it's displaying the information from each field of record 1. If you then use the little arrow keys to navigate through, it's like going through the records in here. The forms themselves don't store any data. The data is being pulled through to the fields from the table. So you can use forms just for viewing data. The benefit of that is that you are focusing on one record at a time. Whereas with a table, you are focusing on lots of records, and very often you can't see the wood for the trees and your eyes are all over the place. You can also use a form for editing data. Again, you're focusing on one record, and any changes you make, because, let's just change that to 1954, because the data isn't stored in the form, it's being pulled through. There's the little pencil, which tells us that this record is currently in edit mode. So if I move on to the next record, but go and have a look in the table, it has updated that record to 1954. So the form just provides a convenient way for working with the data. You can also add a new record in. I've clicked on that little button at the end. That's exactly the same as in the table, going to the blank row that appears at the bottom. But forms don't have to be plain like this. Forms can have a lot of colour to them. They can have a design, a layout any way you like. They can have drop-down lists, which you can't have in your table. Forms can also be based on a query. So whereas a report can be based on a table or a query, forms can also be based on a table or a query. So this particular form is just based on a single table. So when I open the form, I will see the data from record 1, and I can use it to edit the data and also add new data. But what if I wanted to insert data into 2 tables from the same screen? You can then create a form that's based on a query. So you could create a query that contains the fields, all the fields from 2 tables, create your form based on that query, and then when you fill in the form and you submit, it then sends the data to the right fields in the 2 tables. You can also have something called a master form and a sub form. So for example, I could design a form based on the classes table, and in the what it would look like is it would look like the fields from the classes table, but usually in the lower half of the screen you'd then see all the students who were linked to that particular class. So it means that you're not constantly switching between 2 tables. You've got everything on one screen. There's other uses for forms, which I'll come back to in a while. But let me show you how to design a form. Now, for this one, I'm going to use my other database. I'm going to use my HR database. And I've got 2 forms already set up. If you remember, I built these a couple of weeks ago just as a demo. If I go to the employees table, if you're wondering why I've got missing data here, so there's an error here, it's because I removed the employee ID from this table. I think I did it when I was doing a demo last week, and I've just used the same database. So let's look at how to create a form from scratch. Go to create and use either form design or blank form. There is a form wizard, but again, based on what I said before, I'm going to ignore that one. So form design. And here is my form. Now the size of the actual grid determines how much space it takes up when it's actually being displayed to end users. So I can resize it to make it bigger or smaller. Let's make it that size. I haven't told it which table or query it's going to be based on. So just like I did with the report, I need to go to data. First of all, make sure I'm looking at the form properties, and then go to data and choose the record source. And the record source will be the employees table. So then when I bring up the field list, I can select all the fields. Now you don't have to select all the fields. Obviously, if the form is going to be used for inputting data, you do need to select all the fields, because otherwise you're going to end up with some empty records, some empty values in the underlying table. But sometimes if you're just using a form for viewing data in a certain layout, then you wouldn't need all the fields. But rather than dragging them on one at a time, I'll select the first one, first name, shift and click on the last one to select them all, and just drag the lot over. You can then change the layout. I'm not going to spend time changing the layout. It's just a case of grabbing hold of the field and dragging it around to lay it out wherever you want. And that's how I built that layout and how I built that layout, just by dragging the fields around. So each field has a label and the field is linked to the underlying field in the table. But there are some things that I will do. I'm not just going to leave it like this, because this is a very plain form. There's a few things that I'll show you. For example, you can see that the headings are virtually hitting the left-hand side. So I will just bring the whole lot over a little bit. That'll do. One thing that you might want to do is you might want to change the background colour of the whole form. So with the detail section selected, bring up the property sheet, go to format and go and change the background colour. So let's have it as yellow. Oh, don't like that colour. Don't let me loose with colours. That's the rule, isn't it?
Yes.
Don't let me loose with anything designy, as I always tell people. I have no design skills at all.
You have other features, dear.
I do. When I find out what they are, I'll let you know. Okay, let's save this form. FRM employees. That'll do. Okay, what I want to do now is I want to make the grade field a drop-down list, because at the moment the grade field you have to type into it. We've decided in our company that every employee is either going to be on grade A or B or C or D or E. So there are 5 grades, A to E. And the grade that somebody is going to determine their salary and their other benefits, just like in a typical organisation. So we have this field called current grade, and that field is linked to the current grade field in the table. And at the moment, the current grade field in this form is just a text box. So if I was to type grade C, if I were to move Mark Brewer from grade A to grade C, open up the employees table, and Mark Brewer is still showing as grade A, that's because I have still got this record in edit mode. So I'll move on to the next record, which saves the record. So Mark Brewer's on grade C, and now Mark Brewer is on grade C. So that's showing you again that the table and the form are linked. But wouldn't it be nice if we could have a drop down arrow so that instead of having to type the grade in there, we can just select from a drop down list? To do that, I will switch back to the design of the form, and I will click on the current grade field, and if you right click on it, you get a menu coming up as you'd expect, and on that menu you've got change to, and you can choose to change that text box to something else. So instead of having to add a combo box, which is the official term for drop-down list, instead of having to add that manually, which you would do through one of these controls, that one there, you can actually convert an existing text box into a combo box. Right click, change to combo box. So there's our combo box. Now when I click the drop down arrow, it's got grade C in there because that's what's in the table for that particular record, but there's no items. So how do we get that drop down list populated? We select the combo box, and in the properties for that combo box, go to data, and we've got two options, two ways to do it. I could either set the row source type to a value list and then set the values as, it's not there, is it? Yeah, there it is. It set the values as A, B, C, D, E, and then switch back to the form. And there they are. So if I chose A for Mark Brewer, no, it wasn't Mark Brewer, was it? Yes, it was Mark Brewer. Then go to the table. It should have changed back. Yes, it has. So that's one way to do it. But the downside of doing that is if the company decided they wanted to add another couple of grade levels, career levels as they're called in AstraZeneca, then, you know, if you were adding grade F and G, then somebody would have to go and actually edit the properties. And the more people that you let loose on the underlying form design, the more messy it gets, as with many things. So what I've done is I've created a table which has nothing more than the grades in it. It literally has one column in it with the grades in. And I'm going to link that field on the form to that table. So with that combo box selected, I'm going to change the row source type from value list to table or query, and then change the, oops, what have I done there? Close that down, do that again, table or query, and then click the drop down arrow for row source and choose the lookup grade table. Now at this point, you won't notice any difference. Click the drop down arrow and we've got grades A to E. But now, I'll save this form and I'll just close it down for a minute. If I open up that table and add F and G, and then go back to the form, we now have F and G there. And the reason I've done it that way is it's a lot easier for a typical end user to go in and open up a table and add a couple of records than it is for somebody to go and edit the properties underlying the form. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. So I've taken you through the connection with SharePoint. We also looked at best practice for where to store your database. We've looked at how to build a report, and we've looked at how to build a form. Okay, do we have any questions?
Toblerone.
Toblerone.
Yep, Toblerone.
And for my next demo, it will be a chocolate database.
My demo data used to be Panda Confectionery Products.
It did, didn't it? Yeah.
Yep, it was all kinds of chocolate and caramel, and oh yes, it was lovely. Yours used to be Redmond Rovers.
It did, a football team.
Yep.
It keeps the delegates interested.
Unless they don't like football.
Or chocolate.
I've never found anybody who doesn't like chocolate.
No, interesting, nor have I.
Funny that, isn't it? Yeah. Lots of complaints about other stuff, but never chocolate. Never chocolate.
No.
Right, so have we got any questions about all of that?
Questions about access rather than questions about chocolate. But I'm prepared to answer questions about chocolate as well.
What are you doing next week?
I don't know.
You done with access?
Yes.
Oh, access, way! Right, I'll switch to that.
Kim wants me to unbox a Toblerone. Kim, if you think a Toblerone can last a week.
What can I say?
Okay, well, I hope you found that 3-week session on access to be useful. Good,
I hope so too. Right, should we go into that? We're back next week, same time, same place. I think we're actually doing Fridays, haven't we, for weeks and weeks and weeks, instead of juggling and throwing one in on a Sunday or having to do a YouTube premiere. No, it's all
that's because
organised.
We've got no Catinian dues to go.
That's because we've got nothing. We've got nothing. We're at home and we're staying at home.
Neil wants VB in access.
Ooh, that's complicated.
I could do VB in access next week.
You see, look, you're getting them all excited, are you? If I can get hold of a Toblerone, we can have Mike unboxing a Toblerone, but that might become quite tricky at the moment. Worldwide shortage, so the price has gone up. How about unboxing a gallon of petrol?
Oh yeah,
because that's gone right down in price.
Neil, would you prefer VB in Access or Excel?
You can't make a man choose like that. It's going to say Access.
Because to some degree, VBA is VBA is VBA. You're just dealing with different objects and different examples. I'm happy to do it in Access. I don't mind.
You'll have a think.
Have a think. Let me know.
Have a think.
Access. He
Deborah
wants access.
I thought that didn't come as a total surprise to me, Mike. Deborah's enjoying the fact it's been Saturday morning.
Good.
Rather than Sunday morning. I just like the fact there's a consistency to it. So, because what was happening was some weeks you'd be getting like 5 days prep and another you'd be getting 8, and then there was the ones with the YTPs which are just difficult to deal with, the YouTube premieres, because you're working in hand. The last YouTube premiere was when we were away in Alveston.
It was.
And I think the next time we'll go away, it'll probably be Alveston next year.
Just going back to something I forgot to mention for Neil, you were asking about web apps last week. Web apps are no longer. They've been more than sunsetted.
Taken out and shot at dawn.
Yeah. Web apps are no longer in use for access. And I did mention that there used to be a web version of access. So I guess it was like, what's that thing? Airtable. Yeah. I guess it was kind of similar to Airtable. But it no longer exists. It was a cloud-based version of Access, which Microsoft sunsetted in 2018.
I still think they're missing the boat there. But having said that, there are so many alternatives out there now, like Notion and stuff. There's Notion, there's Monday.com.
There's lots of them.
Even Rome has now got competition in the kind of flexible note-taking genre.
Yeah.
So Microsoft seem to have missed that, as though they don't feel it's necessary.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying about SharePoint. Clunky to the point that you don't really want to use it. You're saying it's powerful.
It is clunky.
I remember looking at Lotus Notes, and I'd been sold Lotus Notes as like, oh, it's amazing. The things it can do, it's stunning. And I sat through this session and I thought, this is absolute garbage. I thought maybe it was just me. I clearly had higher expectations for the accessibility of it. And that was what I was meaning with SharePoint.
Yeah.
A lot of people say to me, oh, I can't be bothered putting it in SharePoint. By the time I found the bit, which is where you're at with Notion. If you've got one tiny piece of information to put in Notion, you've got to remember exactly where it is that it needs to be. So Notion is fantastic, but the benefit of you using it depends on you building a dashboard that actually works for you. And that dashboard changes constantly. I don't know about you.
I presume Neil's comment was related to Lotus Notes, and Paul has the opposite view.
I did not like Lotus Notes. I sat through this course by a guy who was... you see, if you programmed in it, then maybe you were making it better. But on the level that I did this... Well, I didn't take this course. I just happened to be sat there. And I was asking questions and then following along. And I'm thinking... It was quite primitive, what he showed. So I can only assume that you needed to program it to give it some... It's like Notion. Can you imagine sitting and looking at Notion and there's nothing there? It depends on your ability to create something. So clearly Paul managed to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, according to Neil's... Neil must have had my experience with it.
Interesting comment from Peter.
Which one? Where are we? I've had a look at the database module in LibreOffice. Looks very similar to what Mike's been showing. Good for those who want access on the Mac. You do need to install the JDK to get it working, though. Jonathan's gone quiet. Yes, I wondered about that, Neil.
Giles is through. Giles has scored. 5-2.
They think it's all over, but hang on.
Come on, Johnny, come on.
You know, it might be interesting to look at LibreOffice and see if it can actually open the Access databases and stuff.
There are some apps, there are some Mac apps that can open Access databases.
They tend to concentrate on the data storage side of things and not the customised modules.
Ah, he's awake.
He's awake. There you go. See, I told you it wasn't over yet.
False sense of security. He's been ruled offside. The licence got his flag up.
Oh, right. What kind of demo for about 3 hours now?
I was going to ask a question. Does anybody want a demo? Not tonight.
Yes, tonight. Tonight.
It's not set up. Does anyone want me to do an overview of Power BI?
Oh, that's his pet toy. That's his biggest pet.
Well, it's not really. I'm still at the beginning of my learning journey on Power BI.
Crying out loud.
It's a massive subject. But if anyone's interested.
Right, I'm following through with these chats and backing up. Amazing power to a consumer app, yeah.
I'll do a session on Power BI.
Oh, I do agree with that, Paul. The syncing across the servers was way before its time. What he built was just an address thing. So I think it needed to be pushed a lot more. A bit like Outlook. Do you remember the different modules they had? You could build amazing solutions, but then they ripped all that out. I'll never understand it. Let me have a look. It wasn't a database.
Power BI, Kim, is it's the latest tool from Microsoft. It's for building business intelligence dashboards. It's a separate app from Excel. Although Excel can do a fair bit of what Power BI can do, Power BI to some degree is more powerful. It can connect to lots of different data sources.
Like COVID data.
COVID data, yes.
Oh, apparently, according to the government, the R8 doesn't matter anymore.
Oh. Right.
Now it's shooting up, doesn't matter.
Right.
We'll see how that goes. Went from MicroStrategy to Tableau to Power BI.
I never used Tableau. It's expensive for a start.
Yeah. No, Power BI is a good topic.
Yeah.
It's a good topic.
All right. I'll do a getting started with Power BI after I've done VBA on Access.
Stephen says, "Am I late? Did I miss anything?" A lot. And Jonathan's still awake, so it's clearly early.
Yeah, Power BI will connect to SharePoint. It'll connect to lots of things.
OLAP cubes.
OLAP cubes.
OLAP cubes. I used to look up data warehousing. OLAP cubes.
It can connect to Azure warehouses.
And do you remember the SOAP protocol? That was a cool one.
Yeah.
Very lightweight protocol.
I'm using that more and more now.
Mm.
I'm using that about 10 times a day.
That's totally a different thing, Mike.
The SOAP protocol. There's a joke in there.
I have noticed in the bathroom we've got all these different types of soap, and I said, well, when I get one empty, then I can fill it up from one of the others, and each one's got a tiny bit at the bottom, as though not quite want to finish that off. Anyway, I need to see if this has actually gone up there. Let me come out of here. I was going over here, and I was trying to get a picture up there because about half an hour ago, I said, "Is that the dog?" And that's not the link I'm looking for. It's not the thing you're looking for.
That's not the dog. No,
it's not. I was trying to send it up to here, and I've got this picture that I wanted to share with you, which is that one. You'll be able to see the time on it if I can ever get it sent up there. Crying out loud. Right. Send it. Go, 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 go. Right. Now, hopefully that will appear on my clipboard at some point, and I will be able to paste it in. But that's not the right one. Come on. Trying to share this with you. It's too cute. It is too cute. Right, let me go and find... Oh, no, it wasn't there, was it? It's that one.
What one?
I'm hoping it's this one so I can share it with you. But now I might as well just share it on the screen and be done. Right, I said, "Is that the dog?" So then I said, I'll have a look at the camera. And there she is in front of my printer paper and her dog food, all wrapped in towels, sleeping like a baby. And her foot there, that looks remarkably like chicken.
That's it.
I think it is.
Chicken's on the stairs as she's taking it down.
She might have done. Or maybe she's cuddling something else. Could be another foot. Because we're in night mode, so it's difficult to tell. But how cute is that?
Kim wants me to get the cake.
How cute is that? Which cake? Which cake? Have I missed a cake?
Yeah, I said I'd unbox a cake.
Oh, no, I will find something to unbox. I will. I might find a Toblerone for Mike.
What, now or next week?
Next week.
Okay.
See that? Now he wants a Toblerone. Can't win. Absolutely can't win with him. So what else would you like? She's all curled up.
What else would I like?
She's been in the covered in after hours department. Oh. She is a good girl today. She's been a very good girl today.
My phone needs charging. It's down to 5%. That's
because you were taking pictures of milk crates, which are now living in our front garden, apparently. I'm going to have to approach the council.
I've got that mail, Neil, thank you.
Oh, did Jonathan get my mail?
I don't know.
I got MacBites to send. Jonathan sent MacBites a mail, and Jonathan, it went into the spam. So I have rudely removed it from there and told it not to do that again. But I've replied. So, what do you want? You've sorted out your demonstrations from Mike. How long's Power BI going to take?
I can do an hour.
You can do an hour on Power BI. What else do you want? We've still got the colour thing I'm kicking around. I'm thinking Thursday, but I don't know whether it's this one or next one. What do you reckon?
It's up to you.
There's a Catenian do on.
We'll do it this Thursday then.
More video editing tips. Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. I can do the rolling edits next week. Rolling edits are something that you don't think you're going to need. But then, to be honest, I taught myself all these things. It was so weird. I started doing recordings, and I'm better live. The show must go on if it's live, never mind what's coming crashing down around you. But when you're in a video, you're like, I misspoke. But when you misspeak live, you just carry on. You're the same, aren't you?
Yeah.
So we really do need to get round to Devon Think for Kim, you know. That's been mentioned for a while. And there's been a big update this week. So if you got that free book from Take Control, there's an update out this week. If you didn't, I think it's still free. So I was doing all these video edits with like, that doesn't work and that doesn't work. And there was also other things going on, like the company that insisted I do it at 1280 by 720 when it should have been 1600 by 900. And I'm just looking at that. That's tonight. That's the poster for tonight, not next week. Crying out loud.
Yeah, the poster for next week's there on your other screen.
There's the poster for next week. There you go. No, that's because that's Keynote, and that's Wirecast. It's all in hand, Mike. It's all in hand. What was I saying? Video editing. So I then found... Neil, you say that, but can I just say, I'm still talking. How long can he stay awake? I taught myself all these techniques based on mistakes that I'd made and errors that came up on the screen and all kinds of other stuff. Taught myself all these things. And then when I started looking at it, I realised they all had names. So I was actually amazed. The J cuts, the L cuts, X cuts, rolling edits, all had names. Devon Think usage and incorporating it into your process. Oh, that's a good one, Paul. That's a good one. I do use it extensively. Must admit, I very seldom find myself having to search for anything, which is where its power lies. But I think it's because my scanning, my scanning system's decent. It sets it up and it all puts it in there. And I would know where to go if I needed to see it. But a lot of the stuff is stuff like, oh, there's the credit card bill, it's scanned, it's in there, dealt with. And then I would go back as and when I needed it. But I will put that down. Mike, copy and paste that into an action item. Oh, and Mike, it's an action item for this show, not the next one, because I'm not going to find it on the next one till next week.
Right.
Then I would have forgotten. So I've moved the other one. Usage and...
Oh, I thought I put it in. Oh.
No, you put it in next week. Bumpers. Oh, what about bumpers? What would you like to know about bumpers? Think into your process. Right, it's on a post-it note. Right, what about bumpers? Tell me about bumpers. What do you want to know about bumpers? I have got a template that I've just created, brand new one in Camtasia for one of my YouTube videos. And that was what I was wanting to do the rolling edits with. Like I said, never had a need, honestly, in 12 years, never had a need to do a rolling edit. And then the second I was in Camtasia, and I love the features in Camtasia, like the freeze region and all of that. Fabulous fun. But then I came up with the fact I needed a rolling edit and it didn't do a rolling edit. But I have found a dirty hack. Nothing specific, another video editing and what they are. Okay. I have a bumper. I have a bumper in my YouTube videos. So I can show... What I need to do is show you a YouTube video, isn't it? Which means I need to create a YouTube video.
Who suggested that?
Short little video. That was Paul. That was Paul. He's trying to learn the lingo of video editing as well. I will say the one thing I've never seen anybody else use, if they're doing talking head, I've seen them using clapperboards. But I've never seen anybody who uses a virtual clapperboard. There used to be an app for iOS and it was wonderful. And they stopped supporting it. It was a paid for thing. I guess no one was paying for it, but it was a great app. That's why I took to making my own and having it on the screen at the beginning of a recording, which you wouldn't think you need, but trust me, it gets out of hand fast. I remember a couple of years ago, in fact it was a good few years ago, Maya was around and we just got him to sleep and he had very bad arthritis and he used to sort of go on all night chunnering with himself. So we just got him settled down. It was May, which isn't usually warm in this country. And I was prepping to record this video. So it was about 2:30 in the morning. And I thought, right, it's done. I'm going to go into the studio. And I had 3 videos to record. So I thought, I know, it'll be far easier, I told myself, to sit down, press record, do all 3, boom, done. Totally forgetting that I then had my audio. I record my audio separate. I can record it straight into, well, at the time it would have been ScreenFlow, but ScreenFlow or Camtasia, but I tend not to. There is method in my madness with that, but I've got these audio files, and then I'd got this big video file. And then I'm thinking, oh, well, that wasn't the best idea you ever had, because I'd got the audio file that needed to go in with the video file, and then it needed splitting into 3. And then I thought, and I've not actually got 3 files, 1 for each video. And I swear a week later, I'd be saying to myself, where's the other 2 files? Even if I'd named them like, video 7, 8 and 9, I'd be looking for the other files. So I never did that again. But I thought that would be easier, and it's not. A lot of it's workflow. Workflow makes the difference between getting it out of the door and sitting there crying in a heap, doesn't it, Mike?
Yes.
And other things you need, like ADR. ADR was something that I set up a system for myself, and I called it something totally different. And then I saw an interview with Kiefer Sutherland, and he was talking about some work he was doing. And he'd done voice work for, it was one of the big films, animated film. And it had animals in it, and he was playing one of the animals. And he said, and then I needed to do the ADR. And I'm like, whoa, back up, the what? And I looked it up, and I thought, that's what I do, only I wasn't calling it ADR, but now I call it ADR because apparently that's what it is. Who knew? Automated dialogue replacement. Now, I'm not sure what the automated part of that is, because to me it's a very manual process. So if I'm editing a video and I have to cut something out, it may be that the sentence I've finished on and the sentence I need to go into when I've taken a chunk out doesn't sound right. It sounds as though it was recorded in 2 different time zones, which it probably was if there was a big chunk in the middle. So then what I do is listen to the out and listen to the in, and then do a matching piece, and that's called ADR. So yeah, it's all workflow. If I didn't have that workflow that now needs to change, just saying. The workflow I had was in Evernote, and it worked brilliantly. I think I've actually shown it to you. But obviously I'm not really doing Evernote much now. So I think I want a cloud solution for that. Probably Notion. But that was what I intended to do this week anyway. I've decided we need a break. Only from work. Not from Marooned, not from After Hours. Oh no, love the MacBites family. It's just everybody else I have a problem with. Can you just...
2 peoply.
2 peoply. They are the 2 peoply. And not in a good way. You can be peoply. Nina's adorably peoply, isn't she?
Yeah.
Nina loves everybody. She is all over the place. She is a social butterfly. And she finds me absolutely hysterical. When she had that problem this week with trying to print that thing from her iPad, she'd sent me a mail and I sent it back and it asked some questions. And then she sent back another mail. And I'm like, this would be far faster if I rang the woman. Now, we've been best buddies for 4 years. Yeah. I think it's the first time I've ever rung her. She nearly fell off the sofa and she went, oh my God. Oh. Then her husband came in and she said, I'm talking to Elaine. And he went, what? On the phone? That is how often I make a phone call. Like once every 4 years. I'm fine on text. Send me a text. Send me an email. But don't expect an answer if you phone me. This is where the priest goes wrong because he phones. Then it's like, whoa, what do you want? I don't answer a phone call unless I know what somebody wants. That way, madness lies. So, yes, I shocked poor Nina, but dealt with it straight away. So it was all good. It was absolutely all good. So, okay, video next week then. Excellent. I've got that down. And anything else that comes up, like new toys. Would you any new toys? Snagit's not due yet, is it? Snagit 2021. Hoping it'll replace Clarify.
I got a reminder the other day to pay my Camtasia maintenance.
No one's going to hear you if you point the microphone up there. But I got the gist of it.
I got a reminder to pay for my Camtasia.
So did I, but it's not due till the third week in June, so they're not getting it.
No, I was thinking the same.
They can have it the third week in June. Oh, I should have got a reminder from the Institute as well.
Oh.
Have you got one?
Yeah, I've had 2.
Oh, lovely. I usually get about 23 and then fill it in 5 minutes before midnight.
It says...
Go on.
It says that if they've still got you, if WillPay's still got your details, it'll just renew. And I rang them up to check, and it does. Because do you remember that farce one year where they took the money twice?
Well, that's interesting. Because WorldPay still have my details. You can't get rid of them. But the credit card's no longer valid. So it isn't going to go through.
Oh.
So I will have to speak to them. But I do think that's ridiculous. That they will try and take the money, even though... I mean, how do you cancel it? How do you actually cancel that if you want to pay for it a different way?
I don't know.
No, neither do I. No, it's not on that. We're talking about the mic and setup. That's a great topic. Is Jonathan still awake? Jonathan, set up. If he's asleep, can I just say 126? Oh, Jonathan's still awake. No, he's not done the deed yet. No, he's not done the deed. I could probably do a setup series already. In terms of I've got the majority of the apps that are in it, which is why I haven't got a subscription. Mike is potentially going that way because of his Ulysses subscription, but I'm different on Ulysses. Yeah, I guess we could do that. Why not? Let's put it down. An app by app on setup. Setup, app by app. That's a good title. I'm liking that. Right, okay. So we've got video, we've got terminology, we've got doing it, we've got creating a template and setup. Do you know, if there was like, let me have a look what's in it. What's in it that's expensive apart from Ulysses? You see, Mind Manager, Mind Node would be brilliant, but it doesn't work right. It doesn't. They didn't do it the Ulysses way. Paul helped us out with that, and no, it's not the way we want it, is it, Paul? It's not what we want. If it's not what we want, it's not right. Right, let's have a look at all of the apps and see what I could do. Does anybody find it weird that there's multiple apps in the same category, like more than one mind map app? You see, I've had Bartender since day one, and I've already got Capto. And I've got Downey. Not that another license would go amiss. Clean Shot might not be a bad idea.
Neil uses that. He said that last week.
Yeah. What's £199?
I was just wondering that.
Whoa, Jonathan, what was it? Oh, SQL Studio Pro. You could do a demo of that.
Of what? SQL Studio Pro?
SQL Studio Pro. Because you'd have a copy, wouldn't you? Cloud Mounter is unbeatable. Cloud Mounter is absolutely unbeatable. I'm wondering if there's anything that could tempt me. Image to icon, we've done that. That was fabulous. How about a time tracking app, Mike? Oh, I know a good one. I know a good one that I could do. Hype. And there was another one I was thinking about. I've got Code Runner. Code Runner's a cool one. And I've got Eon Timeline. Where was the one I was thinking of that is in setup? I know it is. Let me have a look. Yeah, SQL Pro Studio, Mike. And Studies is pretty cool as well. That's academic papers, isn't it? Which was the one I was thinking of? I will give you your due. There's a lot in there. Oh, I know. It was Photo Magico, wasn't it? Isn't Photo Magico Pro in there?
I think it is. I think we discussed that last week. Yes, it is. 'Cause I saw it.
Oh, there you go. See, I've got that, but Mike hasn't. And Espresso's in it, which I have used. And Drop Zone. We use Drop Zone all the time.
The black hole.
Drop Zone is the black hole. I just think it's a shame MyNode, which is one of my favourites, doesn't give you the full subscription like Ulysses does. That would be amazingly cool. But yeah, Photo Magico's an arm and a leg. It's over £100. Unite's pretty cool as well, and Yoink. You see, I'm trying to talk myself into it for you, but I have got so many of them, I don't think yet. If 2 or 3 of the really expensive ones brought out an update, so something like Photo Magico Pro, I probably would. Another thing Photomagico could do, if they went subscription, which they're not at the moment, but they are on iOS, then again, it would make more sense. It'd make more sense to do that. But I've already got Photomagico down as something from the other night, so I'll leave that there. And Mike and I will have a discussion about it. You'd love to see Hype. Had it for years, never used it. I did do a session on it a good while ago. And I have just, oh, how organised am I, put all of my live sessions that I've done into a Notion database, which means I now know what I've done and when I did it. So if I head off into there and open up my live sessions in a new window, I can tell you exactly when that was, but I don't think it went on YouTube, which is weird. Weird. Right, let's scroll back to the beginning. Right, 2012 it goes back to, there you go. There was, oh, I know where it is. I know why it never saw the light of day on YouTube. It was called Create HTML5 with Hype. And it was delivered 2 days before my birthday in 2012. So it was 8 years ago. But I do remember when I was looking at it, I did a demonstration. Do you remember it, Mike? Not the blue square one. I actually had a mock-up of Old Trafford.
I do, yeah.
And I had photos coming in from, oh, it was a good demo, that. I know exactly where that is, so I can dig it out. So absolutely, we'll put that down as well. And have a look at Coda, lots of similarities to Notion. I did have a look at Coda, and what I do love about it, Neil, is the colours. The colours are nice and bright and bold, and I find the colours in Notion a little bit muted. I do like things that look like Google Calendar in terms of colour, so I can actually see it. So Deborah said she's used Hype, would love a tutorial, and it's challenging. It is. It's a bit like Flash used to be, because you've got the starting keynote and the ending, not keynote, keyframes, and the bits between and how it all accelerates and all of that. So yeah, Hype would be a good one. These are all going on Post-it notes, you know. If I shoved the entire lot into one show, I think I could outwit Jonathan. But having said that, I would probably outwit the rest of you as well. And the good news, if you are in Australia, apart from the time we start, which isn't as bad as Marooned, which is 2 hours earlier, it's looking like Friday for the foreseeable, isn't it, Mike?
It is.
I think we were up to October, weren't we? So it looks like a hot date every Friday. That not that we're shifting it around, etc. The only thing that we were thinking about in the summer was the concerts, wasn't it? And sadly, the concerts are no more. All of our favourite concerts. Mike had a lovely chat with a guy last weekend, and they've all been cancelled. So even for August, they've all gone. So we won't be out of the house. I'm liking this being in the house business. I'm nesting, aren't I?
Yes.
With you and the dog, and that's
because
it.
It's too
peoply. It's going to be peoply this weekend. It's all over the front of the papers. We're going to have a really glorious weekend. Point one, I don't like the heat. But it's going to be really glorious, and apparently there's going to be 15 million people, or as we call them, COVIDiots, going to the coast for a lovely day out. I don't know if anybody's told Blackpool, but I suggest they block the M55 with something big, like Blackpool Tower, and leave them to it. 15 million people on the road. Are they insane? Answers on a postcard. I think they're insane. I think we're still this side of the second peak, so we're going to be here on a Friday night, which is good news, apparently. We will sort this list out and we'll try and put it into some order as well. And that way you'd have an idea of when it was coming up and you could get your questions in, which would be a good idea. The trouble is, Neil, if I look at Coda and I start getting excited, I'm going to have to rebuild everything. There's my entire holiday gone. Can you see, this is what happened with Rome. It's like, oh, it's amazing. And now I've got some stuff in Rome. Only the stuff that makes sense in Rome, but even so, I'm fragmented. Oh, and take a look at Airtable. You are very bad to me, you lot. You are very bad to me. I'll go on. I'll have a look at all of them. We'll put a day aside, won't we, Mike, in our holiday?
Yeah.
Jonathan is still awake. Can we declare that Jonathan has won this week? Well done, Jonathan. Well done.
3.
4-3.
4-3.
Right, what's happening next week, Jonathan?
4-4.
No. He could be busy. Considering all you've done today, I think you need to take a rest. Clean the flat and everything. I know what we'll do.
Unbelievable, Jeff.
I know what we'll do. I've got until October, yeah. What I'm thinking is, right, we'll have Jonathan here. We'll have him clean MacBites headquarters from head to toe. We'll have Lola take him out for 17 walks. He'll be sleeping like a baby. That's next weekend taken care of. Well, I've got lots and lots of ideas from you, which is fantastic. I've got lots of things to work on. I can tell you now, we'll definitely do the video stuff next week. There you go. We'll do the rolling edits, the J cuts, the L cuts, and bumpers and things. Yes, drink your wine tomorrow, Jonathan. He's off again next Friday. Oh no! I shall be having to have words about your schedule, young man. But I have known you nod off, even on days off. It might be really warm or something. I'm getting the feeling Jonathan's like the underdog here, and they're all supporting him. Because, like, if I nod off, there's no show. Or the show will carry on till tomorrow morning, one or the other. Do you actually know how to stop the show, Mike? Just in case I go under a bus mid-show.
Yeah, you go to Wirecast and press stop.
That would generate an error at the YouTube end with it saying where's the feed.
Well, then you go to there and press stop.
Do you know where stop is?
On that screen somewhere.
The short answer is he hasn't got a clue.
Yeah, but there's things you haven't got a clue about that I do.
BI, Power BI. Extra supplies of chocolate for next Friday. You're quite right, Neil. It was clearly the Toblerone that did it, Mike.
Ah.
Does that count then, or is that like, should we do drug testing?
Does what count?
Well, that could be an unfair advantage, couldn't it? Oh dear, good night, Peter.
See you, Peter.
Right, well, shall we head off as well?
What, to get some breakfast?
That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea. No, you've got a cake, haven't you, that we were thinking of, but yeah. I'm not totally sure.
Okay.
We'll see how it goes. We will see how it goes and we will report back. And just for Mike's education, at the top of that screen there, it says end stream.
Right.
So I will say good night from me.
And I'll come over and hit end stream.
No. You'll say good night from you.
I'll say good night from you. Yeah, from me, yeah.
Oh, crying out loud. So professional, isn't it? Good night from me.
And it's good night from me.
We will both see you next time. Good night, guys.